Welcome in to the extended Yahoo version of the NBA Deeper Dive. We have a full Deeper Dive coming your way in about a half hour, then live before lock. We'll take you right up until this slate locks. A couple of things. First and foremost, hope you had a great extended holiday and ate a ton. That's what this holiday is all about. You can be as gluttonous as you want, and there's absolutely no judgment. You watched a ton of sports throughout the NBA as well, buzzing. I don't know what's going on. Matt's in the house, as always, as Jordan comes out with like the Sam Spence NFL remix. You know how they added like a drum beat and a bass line to the NFL stuff? Jordan has the Christmas remix to it. It's not even like Christmas in Hollis. It's like the updated Christmas remix.
Love it. Love it.
I don't expect that.
You can always count on Jordan to deliver. That's honestly one of my favorite parts of doing these shows is you never know what beat we're going to get. The man has more beats than Dr. Dre. I don't know where he gets them all.
He must steal them off the internet to make sure that they're okay for YouTube and that we don't get any red flags or anything like that. Or maybe he's making them. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's a producer. We don't even know about it. In a year, it's going to be like no more Jordan producing shows. He's out there producing hits. So that's the first thing. The other thing is this wasn't planned. I just want everybody to know out there as we hit this 9-game slate on Yahoo specifically, and we'll break it down, match strategy and beyond with injuries, including Butler and Levine. This wasn't planned. Somehow you and I are both in baseball gear. You celebrating right now the amazing signing by your Amazons. And I just so happen to have my Bryce Harper MVP type tee on. So we're fully focused on the NBA tonight. I don't want people thinking that we're, getting into baseball or anything like that.
Well, you can make all the promises you want. My head has been solely wrapped around Max Scherzer for the last 24 hours. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm excited to get into this slate. It's a pretty nice little Monday slate we've got set up here. But as I was telling you off the air, I very rarely get to celebrate Met wins during the year. So I'm going to do it during the offseason while I can.
And you know what? I can't say anything. As a Phillies fan, I'd love to, but I can't say anything to ruin your parade. If you absolutely celebrate away, my friend. So let's jump into it. And again, we mentioned 9 games tonight. We've talked a lot about your stars and scrubs approach to smaller and maybe even some larger slates. Does that apply overall? We are dealing with a couple of guys as far as an injury standpoint, still dealing with Jokic, Butler, and Levine. But is the stars and scrubs approach pretty much going to hold for you tonight?
So it's certainly an option if you want to do it. I do think that there are plenty of cheaper players available, but I find myself gravitating a little bit more towards a mid-range build today because that's where I'm seeing the most value. And we'll talk about it when we run through the positions. I think that, most of the ownership is kind of congregating on some of these mid-range plays. So going with a stars and scrubs approach could actually make your lineup a little bit different tonight. But outside of Jokic all the way at the top at 54, there isn't a lot separating, that next tier of guys from the $30 to $35 price players.
All right, so let's jump into it and we'll see in the next 20 or so where you're allocating the most funds per position. We start at the point guard spot. And you mentioned, right, Jokic as far as up there at the top in that 50 range. And then we have Luka here. So there's definitely going to be the cost for Luka, for LaMelo. Murray, not really a break right now that we've seen on other slates at 44. There's only a $5 difference between him and Doncic. And then you kind of get into that $30 range. Now, this will be interesting to see where from a dollar range you define the mid build, knowing that we don't have a ton of pay up options.
Yeah, I do think, again, Luka's going to be somebody that always kind of has appeal. I was a little bit worried about him with no Jalen Brunson, worried about the Mavericks in general in their last game. Some of their on-off numbers have been pretty dreadful with no Jalen Brunson, but they certainly had no problem scoring the ball. So I don't think that's a huge concern. And we know Doncic is capable of putting up huge stat lines. So he's 49. I think we can do better from a value perspective, but as far as upside goes, I'll never try to talk you off playing Doncic in a tournament lineup.
Fair enough, right? Are you looking at being overweight to the field at 49? Because I know you mentioned not doing a stars and scrubs approach and more of that mid build, but that's $49 right off the top.
Yeah, I think I'll probably be, we haven't projected right around 15% ownership. I think I will be in that ballpark, maybe a smidge over when all is said and done. The guy who really is drawing the majority of the attention today is Kevin Porter Jr. He's priced at 22. So he's, significantly cheaper than a guy like Doncic, but this Houston OKC game is going to grab just oodles of ownership today, right? If you go, regardless of position, I think the top 5 guys on FanDuel, as far as ownership, are all projected in this OKC Houston game, which makes sense. Houston plays at the second fastest pace or the fastest pace, excuse me, and they don't have Jalen Green. So KPJ is somebody who gets a nice little boost here with Green off the court. He played 42 minutes without Green in their last game. Now, granted, that went to overtime, but he finished with just under 50 Yahoo points. So I think getting him at $22 is a steal. And clearly people agree. We haven't projected for 43% ownership, but that's still somebody that I think I want to be overweight on.
Is there a way to counter all that ownership that you mentioned, as far as, people jumping on that game back and forth with both teams without sacrificing a ton of dollars? And again, we'll get to a couple of other bigger names than Tyrese Maxey, but you start to look at maybe another game or two on here, even if you wanted to go a little bit lower. You mentioned Porter, but if you wanted to counter the ownership and maybe go to a cheaper option, even if that's like a Reggie Jackson or all the way down at Devontae Graham at 16.
Yeah, so I don't see anyone in this direct price range that stands out to me as like a pivot. We have Mike Conley as kind of the closest thing to a pivot compared to KPJ. But I think if you don't want to eat the chalk, the way to do it is to just go to a completely different pricing tier altogether. Go up and get a Luka Doncic, get a LaMelo Ball, get a DeJounte Murray, somebody like that. Or spend way down and take one of these, $10, $11, $12 punt plays.
So we have breaking news, by the way, on the intro music. We have to thank our pal CC Fume 2 for dropping some Friday After Next knowledge on us. Apparently that's the intro music of now. Once you move past the next Friday, I kind of can't, I get a little fuzzy with Friday After Next. So I have to credit CC Fume for that. That's the beat, by the way. So Jordan, and look, thanks. That's even more reason. Hit that thumbs up. We're providing a wealth of depth of information and knowledge here beyond just this 9-game slate. So I know a lot of people wouldn't be able to sleep, Matt, unless they knew where that beat came from. Jordan was denying that he made it. Now we have closure.
And I'm ashamed that I didn't know that right off the bat, because that's the movie with my man OG, if I'm not mistaken.
The Friday After Next. I know they made a last Friday, but I mean, look, Friday itself is epic. That goes down as Hall of Fame. That's Mount Rushmore material. Absolutely. Next Friday, I thought, for sequels, as difficult as they are, Next Friday was pretty good, but I barely even remember what Friday After Next was about. So I give you credit, brother.
I give you all credit. It's the Christmas one. It's the Christmas version of Friday.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, we appreciate every piece of information, if it's who's starting tonight or where the intro beat comes from. Again, make sure you're subscribed here as well. Hugo giving you a shout. Let's go Mets in there. And make sure you're subscribed, of course, to everything that we have going on. All 3 channels here, the DFS, the odds, and the season long. So let's look at the 2-guard now. We'll move on. Nothing really as far as a spend up per se on the slate here. So depending on how you're spending and allocating that mid stack across the board, or mid build, across the board here with this slate, spending up for Beal, Donovan Mitchell, even a CJ McCollum doesn't seem like a crazy reach. We also have D'Angelo Russell there at only $30, Matt.
Yeah, the Minnesota guys are going to be somewhat interesting today. We do have Russell projected as the second highest owned player, but with no Patrick Beverley, it's just a little bit more security in playing time for all of those guys. So I think Russell is certainly in play, and you can consider Bradley Beal too. at 36. The Spurs are not a intimidating matchup. The only thing is that Spencer Dinwiddie is available to play. He rested in their last game. So the Wizards are kind of back at full strength after they were shorthanded in their last game. So that will probably result in Beal being a little bit overlooked. We have him projected right now for 8% ownership. And yeah, it's something that you have to kind of take into account because Beal is coming off a big game, but they didn't have Dinwiddie available.
What about eating chalk on a punt option with Gordon? I mean, he's 33% projected as being owned in these Yahoo slates tonight. But at the same time, $12 for that return, not a bad trade-off by all means if you're willing to eat that chalk. And again, it's a third of the slate, so it's not like it's 60% rushing to get Eric Gordon either.
Right. And I do think that Gordon is a strong play here, right? Like the only issue with Gordon is he hasn't really been seeing a ton of minutes to start the year. He's been coming off the bench and he's sort of deferred to some of their younger guys. That wasn't really the case in their last game. He scored a right under 35 points. He played over 36 and a half minutes. But I will say that the usage wasn't necessarily like a massive spike. He still only posted a 20% usage rate. He just shot the ball relatively well from the field, 8 from 14 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3-point range. So if it comes down to I'm fading one of either KPJ or Gordon, I would rather fade Gordon in this spot just because I don't think you can count on him shooting, over 60% again. I still will have some for sure, but I think that, him being the chalk based on a hot shooting night, it might be a little bit aggressive for me.
What about Duncan Robinson with Tyler Hero being out, getting bumped up, we think at least with some minutes and also being such a cheap option at 12?
Yeah, he's an interesting pivot. I mean, the thing with Robinson is you don't really expect his usage rate to fluctuate one way or the other. He's kind of just out there to make his shots and knock down his 3-pointers. And he has been shooting a ton of threes, by the way, of late. 11 threes in his last game, 15 in the game before that. So I think that that's certainly a viable option. I like kind of, if you want to get off the Gordon chalk, I like Derek White here at $21. Okay. The Spurs are an interesting team tonight. They don't have Devin Vassell. They don't have Doug McDermott. So there's a decent amount of playing time available on the wing. So we'll talk about, I think Kelden Johnson is going to be kind of the chalky option when you're targeting the Spurs. So White is somebody that will command a little bit less ownership, but I think he should be, an equal beneficiary.
Yeah, we have him projected on site. The main slate ownership projections, of course, part of the whole Awesemo Plus package that you could jump in on. Derek White only at 16.4% projected ownership. So definitely maneuverable there as far as you mentioned, pivoting away from chalk. Anybody else here at the 2 before we move to the 3?
I'll throw out Eric Bledsoe at 14, right? He's kind of, we've seen like some upside type games from him in the past. A revenge game, if you're into that, against the Pelicans, right? I don't know. Does Eric Gordon get to have revenge games?
I don't know.
Do you have revenge games when you play for half the league? I don't know, but
that's a good point.
He's displayed the ceiling games at times this year. His production is definitely like a little bit all over the place, but at least 30 minutes in back-to-back games. I think there's, reason to believe in a good performance tonight.
I'd love to make some sort of argument for my guy here at the 2 spot at $16 for Seth, but the way in which he's shooting, minutes aside, which he's going to get a ton of minutes, I actually think $16 is too expensive for Seth Curry right now, Matt.
Yeah, it's just tough when the team is at full strength, right? It's one thing when you're paying for Seth and you have either Tobias or Joel out of the lineup, you can kind of count on an increased usage rate, but with the team basically now back at full strength outside of Ben Simmons, who what a wild report that was the other day. Did you see that he might have to come back and play because he's broke? He's running out of money.
Yeah. I don't necessarily full on believe that, but I think when you're getting fined to that extent, it's easy for anybody, rich or broke, to say, I need to get my ass back in the gym. So
no doubt. No doubt at all. So anyway, for the 76ers, now that they're kind of back at full strength, they're not a team that we really need to pay a ton of attention to.
With Curry, but we'll definitely talk about Embiid and Harris to a lesser extent.
Yes, sure.
All right. So now we're at the 3. We've got a couple of injuries here to focus on, as far as Butler coming through tonight, Levine as well. We still have George on the slate, and there isn't that much of a break from Butler and George, especially with Butler dealing with the injury. And then there's a little bit of a drop off with Anthony Edwards, about $11 difference here. And then you start to get into that high range, if you will, with Giddey, that high 20 range with Giddey. But just even looking at Paul George right now at 14.4%. So not even chalk that you eat if you're willing to spend up for him on the slate here in this position.
Yeah, I mean, for me right now, the guy is Jimmy Butler. He's the guy that I'm looking at. If you look in
even with the injury,
even with the injury, yeah. If you look in our projections right now, we have him right around the same from a fantasy point output, just raw fantasy points, as guys like Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. But you're saving a little bit of money with Butler, so he naturally is kind of standing out as the better pure value of the bunch. He should benefit from the absence of Tyler Hero as long as, Butler does suit up. But if Butler's in and Hero's out, you would expect him to sort of be take on a larger usage rate for the team. I think it's a spot that we want to be overweight on him, especially since right now we have the ownership projection at less than 1%. I would expect that to rise as we get sort of maybe a little bit more injury clarity, but that's a spot that I'm willing to take a little bit of a gamble on.
All right, so we'll keep it moving here because it seems like that's where the majority of your weight will be, assuming he plays, right? In the small chance that he doesn't, is there anywhere else you'd like to look? Or maybe the injury clarity news that you're talking about comes out and shifts your opinion?
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like I'm super overweight on Jimmy Butler. Okay. I would say I'm at about 20% Jimmy Butler at the moment. I think that's
okay. That's fair. Then that's overweight though to what we have.
I'm sorry.
That's overweight to what we have. It's just not like 50%. Right.
Right. Exactly. I'll have some Jae'Sean Tate. He's kind of popping as the chalk option here. Basically whatever position the Rockets have, that's expected to be the chalk. So the small forward for the Rockets is Jae'Sean Tate. He's going to command the most ownership, but he's a guy that I kind of just like his game to begin with. He's somebody that I was rostering even with the team at full strength. So he had about 27 points in his last game, but his usage rate was down at 15%, less than 15%. He has weird games where he'll post a 25% usage rate. So I think there's plenty of upside with him still at $16. I'll have some Garrison Matthews as well for the Rockets. He started and played a whole bunch of minutes in their last game. And he's priced at the absolute minimum. So, and he's expected to command much less ownership. I actually think I prefer Matthews with that in mind. And then if you want another, sort of punt play that I think you can sprinkle in here, Luke Kennard is a decent option, I think, at $10 for the Clippers.
All right. So now to the 4 spot. And again, reminder, the full deeper dive coming your way in about 7 minutes with Lofty and Adam, and then Josh and Greg with the Live Before Lock show. That'll bring you right up to 7 Eastern. Speaking of the deeper dive, Adam's deeper dive is free for you each and every day. So make sure you're paying attention to that, following along, reading that with whatever we're doing here on the shows, specifically to Yahoo or across the board, depending on what you have. And we also have some other free stuff for you. Monday Night Football top plays, your player rankings here in the NBA and NHL ownership projections. So looking at the 4, you've got DeRozan up there at the top, Sabonis, Porzingis in that mid to high 30s range. Harris, now we mentioned him, starts to be a little appealing if you're looking to save some money. I was going to say cost cutting, but not a ton. Mobley's a guy that we've talked about here at that spot. Brandon Ingram as well, getting to them at certain price points. And then Wendell Carter is definitely not sneaking up on anybody at $28 tonight. So are you looking at being maybe top heavy here, or are you still applying that mid-range approach, maybe to a Josh Hart or even Baisley there as we go back to that OKC Houston game.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about being a little bit top heavy here is that you're not spending all that much money, right? Like you don't need to spend $40 to get whoever your top power forward may be. And all of these guys have something working in their favor, right? Like DeRozan, you've got the potential of having no Zach LaVine in the lineup, which would give him a boost. Sabonis, you've got the potential of no Miles Turner in the lineup, which would give him a boost. I think I'm leaning Sabonis as my sort of preferred pay up at the moment, just because he has historically been a really good per minute type of guy. So getting him for a cheaper price tag than DeRozan is appealing to me. I think he's kind of the way to go. But again, there are mid-range values like Kelden Johnson I mentioned before should be a strong option. Wendell Carter will, like you said, he's not sneaking up on anybody tonight at 28. Basley is kind of the weird one to me, right? Because he is projected to catch the most ownership here, but I'm not really sure why, right? Like he's coming off a pretty dreadful performance in his last game. He only played less than 22 minutes. The Thunder are like essentially back at full strength as far as I'm aware, right? Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is playing. The only thing I'm seeing injury-wise is that Kenrick Williams is out. So I'm not sure why he is catching such, meaningful ownership. Maybe it's just the matchup versus Houston. Obviously, like I said before, it's a good matchup, but I have no problems being underweight on Basley if he's going to be the chalk.
So two guys I wanted to hit on here in that low 30 range, Miles Bridges, and then a little bit more on Tobias Harris. And for me, I can't shake what I think is about to happen tonight, which is the Philadelphia 76ers are going to bounce back from a really bad double OT loss at home to the Wolves against the team in Orlando. They're favored by 14.5, 15, depending on where you look at it. This is a blowout. So it's not even like factoring for or it in. Like that's how I see it, Matt. And that could damage Tobias Harris. That could damage Joel Embiid, who we'll get to. So I don't know how much of a factor that is for you getting to Tobias Harris tonight, but he did have 40 plus minutes in his return in that Wolves game, granted in the double overtime frame too. But it's just hard to think that the Sixers don't smash the shit out of the Magic tonight, and that's impacting starters' minutes.
Yeah, it's a spot where, again, he's kind of projected to catch the most ownership in this tier, and I don't really see a huge reason why. Like he's a good player, but there's nothing that pushes me towards him the same way I'm seeing, a Keldon Johnson getting a bump, a DeRozan potentially getting a bump. So like nothing really stands out except the matchup. So again, that's another player that I'm fine being underweight on.
All right. Anybody else you want to hit before you're not rushing to get to Kristaps Porzingis tonight against Cleveland?
It wouldn't be a Matt LaMarca show if I didn't throw out Josh Hart. So,
well, that's why I mentioned Hart at the beginning.
I'm sorry.
I led you down that road. I'm conditioned now. And just like you're conditioned to hear about Tyrese Maxey, I'm conditioned to hear about Josh Hart.
Well, I apologize that I missed the setup. I was always more of an assister than a finisher myself. I don't have not a lot of leap, not a vertical ability. So
you got Scherzer on the brain. It's okay. No problem.
But yeah, the minutes have been there for Hart all year. It's just whether or not he's going to hit any shots that night. He's going to get rebounds. He's active. I still think he's underpriced. So I like him as a bounce back target.
All right, so let's end as we always do here at the center position. Again, Lofty and Adam are coming your way in a matter of minutes, so don't go anywhere. We have a juicy live before lock coming after that. Hit that thumbs up button, please. You just come in. You've been hanging with us. Make sure you're subscribed as well here to the DFS. We have the odds and the season-long channel as well. Let's look at this. And again, I would say the same thing for Embiid. It's $47. We saw minutes for sure and a gigantic game against the Wolves, but that was a 1-point double OT game. I don't think that's going to happen again tonight. So, yeah, you're going to get to him, but I just don't know how much of the blowout factor the bounce back from a team factor it is as far as just not getting to him or not being overweight to the field with him.
Yeah, the problem with Embiid for me is that he's $47 when Christian Wood is 30. And, you know, like if you look in our projections, we don't have that much separating those two players, roughly 6 points. So from a value perspective, Wood is just like a clear choice between the two. But that is being reflected in the ownership. You know, so I've talked about some chalk guys that I'm not really sure why they're chalk. Christian Wood, I understand why he's chalk, and I'm honestly surprised he's not popping for more projected ownership. So I definitely am going to be overweight on Wood. And if I'm not using him, you know, I'm not sure if Embiid is the guy that I necessarily want to rush to.
Is there anybody else you are rushing to, maybe Vooch, or you're going back to the PJ well?
PJ for sure, I think, is a strong option. With no Mason Plumlee, I feel pretty good about his starting spot, his minutes. You know, again, overtime game in his last contest, but still on pace for roughly 30 minutes before that game went to overtime. So I think he's too cheap at 16. And yeah, Vooch for sure, especially if there's no Levine, this could be the Vooch breakout spot. So yeah, both guys I think make a ton of sense, along with Bam at 32. Especially if Denver doesn't have Jokic, Bam could have a field day in that spot.
You know, we might have missed a pretty obvious narrative here. We'll see on the chat, keeping us honest, Matt. It is a revenge game for Tobias Harris.
Like another guy. I don't know if that counts. How many teams has that guy played for?
Too many. You're right. Too many. And look, there's no revenge game when you leave Orlando. That's like a revenge game against the Detroit Lions. You're just thankful that you're gone at that point. It's like, thanks for everything. I'm out.
That was like 7 teams ago for him.
Right. Oh, unbelievable. All right. Thanks, brother. We'll do it again this week. Thanks to everybody for hanging with us. Thanks to Yahoo, of course, for providing this extended look at their slate. Make sure you click on those links below. Don't go anywhere. And look, you can take advantage of a lot, including this amazing Cyber Monday deal where you can get Awesemo Plus Platinum your first week, 75% off. Use that promo code CYBER, as you'll hear throughout. New users. So you see a lot of us already are subscribed and being part of this. You want to be a part of it as well. Thanks to Jordan producing. Thanks to you, Matt, as well. And at Matt Lamarck on Twitter, at Shander Show for me. Don't go anywhere because the full deeper dive comes your way right now.
LFGM, baby.
Jordan. Nice jam, son. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive, presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. I'm Dave Loughran, at Lofty_D on the Twitters, along with Adam Scher at Ship My Money DFS. Rocking a hat today. Different kind of hat, though. Okay, I can appreciate it, man. It's getting cold out in the Northeast, huh?
Yeah, it's especially cold in like whatever room I use as an office at my mom's house. So the hat being here came in handy.
Hey, you have a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it was good. Went up to my sister's, just immediate family. But yeah, it was a good time. How was yours?
Good. It was good. I actually started falling asleep on the couch at my brother-in-law's. So, I mean, I was done for after that. Not even drunk, just, one of those, you ate too much, you're miserable, but you had a good time. I'm glad it's over, though. What are you doing for Christmas? You do big stuff for Christmas?
No, I mean, most of my, I have a small family anyway, but most of my family doesn't live around here. So it just ends up being like immediate family usually.
All right. Well, we're happy to have you guys with us. Thanks for joining, coming in after the first look show. And we got 9 games to talk about today. Once again, a lot of pending injury news. We'll get into all of that good stuff and break it all down. But first, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Only takes a second. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel as well. Working our way to 70,000 subs. Thanks to you guys. And if you want to join, get the badges, the emojis, the shout outs, the free super chats, and all that good stuff. Hit that join right underneath the thumbs up button after you hit that. First question, as always, man, we're getting started a little early today because we got the extended slate. How are you approaching this with some of the injuries? What are you keeping an eye on most closely? Is it a balanced stars scrubs type of situation? What are we getting into tonight?
Yeah, I mean, there's not that much to pay up for. Like there's a few guys, but it's not quite as top heavy as some other slates. Obviously, Jokic is questionable. Really, at this point, no idea if he's going to play or not, because I was pretty confident he was going to play last time and he didn't. So
and the time before that.
Yeah, and the time before that. So at this point, I think it's kind of just completely up in there, and I have no idea. But like, I'm not going out of my way to pay up for most of these guys anyway. So I think it's more of a balanced slate, just because of a lack of alternatives, especially if Jokic sits.
Yeah, it certainly feels like it. Now, you've got 9 games. Looking at some of these totals, too, there's some really low totals on this slate. Does it feel like this year just has some lower totals than we've seen in previous seasons, like routinely?
Yeah, I think it's partly a result of the foul rules. 3-point shooting's been down this year. Free throw attempts obviously are down. So I think you've kind of seen totals in general come down.
All right. Well, let's make this happen. First game up, Orlando and Philly. Philly finally getting healthy. I mean, it's been a long time. This team was 8-1. They fell to 10-10. Double overtime game last time out. I think it was you that did DM me the other day saying like, yeah, Embiid said that he thought he was going to die from COVID, which, not ideal, but at the same time came back and looks pretty good.
Yeah, he came back. That can't be right. Did he really play 45 minutes?
Well, it was 2 OT. Yeah, he played 45 minutes in double overtime. Yeah.
Okay, so the popcorn machine hasn't updated for like the last couple of days, so I'm using Add More Funds, and they show.
Yeah, they didn't update since the 24th last time I looked.
Yeah, it's up to the 26th now, but that makes a lot of
good
sense. I didn't realize they showed fourth quarters that way. I was like, man, D'Angelo Russell played 44 minutes last game, and Embiid played 45. That makes a lot more sense. But so what it means, he would have played like 35-ish in regulation, I assume, which is still a lot and seems to indicate that he probably isn't really having conditioning issues.
It certainly doesn't feel like it. My guess here is that and that's kind of weird though, right? That you wouldn't have any conditioning issues. We've seen a lot of players come back from that and have serious conditioning issues, especially given that he thought he was going to die. That feels like a situation where it wouldn't be the case that he comes out and rips off 45 minutes, but he did. So it's encouraging. And he's alive, and I'm happy for Joel Embiid. But on the Orlando side, let's start there. I just wanted to get your quick take on Embiid because it's a pretty integral part of this game and the slate, especially against the Magic. Orlando's without Cole Anthony again, 14-point dogs. We're still waiting on Terrence Ross and Mo Bamba. But even if you're a big dog at times, there are still spots, particularly if there's some injury news, that opens things up. Is that the case today with the Magic or no?
I mean, I think there's still stuff that's open, but Anthony's been out for a while now, so you've seen prices adjust. Jalen Suggs at 5,300. We know he still has a ceiling there, but it's also pretty easy for him to fail because for one, he isn't efficient, and so he can just have a bad game. But for two, Orlando is still a massive underdog here. You could certainly see another game where he plays like 23 minutes because the game's over halfway through the third quarter as well. So he has a ceiling, but he's risky. Same goes for Wagner. Wendell Carter Jr. at 6,300 probably looks the best, but he has those same potential playing time concerns as well, but he has averaged about 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. Bamba and Terrence Ross both went through shoot around. Both are still considered questionable. Bamba was probable and then starting last game before he was ruled out right before lock. So I don't really have a good feel for that. If he's out, you potentially see more minutes in a somewhat competitive game for Carter. I think it would be a little, at least a little bit of a benefit for him. But the prices have mostly adjusted. They are huge dogs here. There are plenty of other good plays on this slate. So I mostly just see this team as a spot to get to in some tournament lineups.
Hey, you know what's dumb? I just noticed this. I was looking at the screen. YouTube did away, and this isn't on every video because earlier today wasn't the case. They did away with showing how many dislikes there are. One might say that's good, right? But it's not.
Yeah, because you want the feedback, right? And to yell at people for giving you dislikes.
Yeah, no, but more than no, because look, can people not handle that anymore? You know,
so
I want to know.
Still there?
The button's still there, but it doesn't. If you're watching videos, and I consider myself a YouTube connoisseur, I get the premium and all that good stuff, right? But wouldn't you want to know if a video sucks before you get into it?
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah, and I know there's bots and all of that stuff. I get it. I do. I understand that. But we can handle it. Turn it back on, YouTube. Turn it back on. Let's go. But anyway, hit that thumbs up. At this point, I guess there's no harm in that. Josh is going to become insufferable at this point.
Yeah.
Although he doesn't, I don't think Josh cares if there's thumbs downs, right?
No, I mean, I think Josh just subscribes to, any interaction is good interaction.
He's one of those. Any attention is good. He is an only child. Yeah. That explains a lot.
It really does. I didn't know he was an only child, but he makes a lot more sense.
Explains a lot. OCS, man. Only child syndrome's a real thing. But anyway, appreciate you guys that do like this video and hang out with us every day. I just think it's kind of soft. They're getting rid of this. I mean, we can't be trending in that. We are trending in that direction, but I was hoping it wouldn't be the case. Anyway, back to Orlando. Do you have Bamba and Ross in?
Right now, yes, since they went through shoot around, but I'm not particularly confident in that. They've both been late scratched recently. Okay,
so if Bamba's out, we talked about it a little bit. We got sidetracked there, though. What happens if these guys do sit, one or the other or both?
So I think it doesn't necessarily have a huge impact. I think if Bamba sits, it makes Carter look at least a little bit better. If this game is competitive to the end, which is a big if, but sometimes you see only one of Bamba or Carter close. Obviously, if Bamba's out, you would assume Carter is more likely to be in the closing lineup. There's also more rebound chances available, although you did get Robin Lopez starting the last game and playing actual starters minutes. So Orlando insisted on going with a big front court anyway. But I think, it's at least a small positive for Wendell Carter Jr. If Terrence Ross is out, you potentially get a little bit more run for Hampton or Okeke, but I don't think it's going to be enough to really move the needle too much.
Anything else you want to hit on for the Magic then?
Not really. It's just, there's opportunities here since they are shorthanded without Cole Anthony, but it's a pretty tough spot. They have a 96 implied total. They're like 14 or 15 point dogs. It's definitely, and it's the first game of the night, which matters for a couple of reasons. For one, it's the only 7:00 game. So you, in theory, could ignore it and then have a little bit more information potentially, especially because the 7:30 game, we have a lot of questionable guys in that Denver-Miami game. So there's at least a chance that you're still waiting on news and that you don't want to lock in too many roster spots for, Jalen Suggs and his teammates.
All right, so let's get back to Philly and Joel Embiid. So let me just set the table here. On the slate, you have Jokic, might not play. You have Doncic, who's back to being at full strength, which is encouraging. And then outside of that at the top, you have Embiid, LaMelo, and George. Those are just the guys above 10K on DraftKings, just for reference. You got 5 of them, potentially 4. Joel Embiid as a big-time favorite in a pretty favorable matchup. Do you want to get to him today? And how much, and if so, how much are you getting to Embiid?
Yeah, I'm fine getting to Embiid. The issues, it's obviously a really, really good spot. He should have success for as long as he's on the floor here. There is blowout risk, obviously, but we talk about it a lot. That's riskier for guys on the Orlando side than on the Philadelphia side, because you assume someone like Embiid is producing at a high level if Philadelphia blows out Orlando to the point that that he doesn't get full run. So I think Embiid's good. The biggest issue is, for one, he's a center, so we know there's just typically a little bit more opportunity cost there to paying up, but you're locking $10,500 on DraftKings into the first game of the night when you do have questionable guys in the Denver-Miami game. We have Zach LaVine questionable in an 8:00 game. There's some other news potentially coming later on in the night as well. So I do think that you sort of are limiting your options. But that being said, Embiid clearly has one of the highest ceilings on the slate.
Outside of him, though, now that they're getting healthy, right? Like Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey was for a while a great option, but his price point has definitely maxed itself out with Embiid and Harris back. And so many of these guys that we talk about all the time, you start seeing these salaries jump to extraordinary levels when the top players are out, they return, and then everyone else becomes essentially unplayable. Is that the case for most of them, not named Embiid? And I suppose Harris at a sub 8K price point.
Yeah, Harris was the other one that I was going to make an exception for. 7,800, still very reasonable for him. In the 7 games he's played with Joel Embiid this season, he still averaged 1.11 DraftKings points per minute. He's averaged 35 minutes per game. Obviously, you expect that he's probably more likely to play like 31, 32 minutes here, given the spread, and that 35-minute average is skewed by last game a bit. But the point being, he's still, I think, pretty underpriced, or at least fairly priced for his production with Embiid. The rest of these guys, though, I mean, Maxey's salary came up. Drummond, obviously, you're not playing as the backup behind Embiid. Curry loses usage now that Harris and Embiid are back. Shake Milton went through shoot around, so it seems likely he plays. I can't really get to much or anything besides Embiid and Harris.
Okay. You know what this thumbs down removal reminds me of, Adam? Do you remember when Netflix used to have a rating system? Jordan's scratching his head, just waiting for what's about. Do you remember when Netflix used to have a rating system?
Vaguely.
Amy Schumer did the shittiest stand-up special ever. Okay. And all you Amy Schumer fans, go ahead and hit that thumbs down button. And they removed it immediately. After that, they removed it because it got destroyed so bad. So now they just like recommend stuff that's more like, oh, you might like this. But there's no rating system anymore. You can't see if anything gets good ratings on Netflix.
I do actually remember that now. Not the Amy Schumer part, but just the ratings thing in general.
Yeah. So you got to go on IMDb or whatever, or Rotten Tomatoes, but you got to ignore the critic reviews because they're idiots. You go with the people.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like anything that critics like is usually bad, and vice versa.
Yeah, like if both of them love it, it's going to be an incredible movie. But if the critics love it and the audience hates it, it's probably awful, and vice versa.
Right, exactly.
Lesson it's a tip for those of you out there. Don't go by critic reviews. Those people are, yeah. Anyway, Aiden says, how many balls and how much wood tonight? Okay, I don't think that's a serious question. I don't know how much Lonzo Ball and Christian Wood.
Yeah, as many balls and wood as you can get.
Okay, Avi. Where's that one from Avi? I need a dislikes count to know the ratio of likes versus dislikes. Yeah, I guess we all do. But hey, let's talk about Denver and Miami. Nikola, at least this is a 7:30 game, right? All these other Jokic games have been home games or West Coast games. So we at least get a little bit of a respite here from having to wonder what's going on. There's only one 7 p.m. game and then an island 7:30 game. So that's pretty helpful, at least knowing what we're getting into, Adam. But you're going to have to be at your computer potentially after 7 p.m. lock.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of hit on it when we were talking about that Orlando game. If we don't have news from this Denver-Miami game, it makes like if you're on the fence between somebody from the Orlando game and not from the Orlando game, if we're still waiting, particularly on the Denver-Miami news, lean towards whoever's starting later.
And by the way, Michael Porter out for the year.
Yeah, back surgery.
That's rough, man. So if Jokic ends up being out, and obviously Porter's still out, going to be out for the remainder of the season, you've often said, like, yeah, we'll just play most of these guys. But once again, you're starting to see price points rise for the absence of Nikola Jokic. Have we reached a point where they stop being, have we raised maximum capacity when it comes to salary on some of these guys, or are many of them still viable?
No, I mean, I think it's to the point where they're still viable in the sense that you can play them in tournaments. They obviously have increased opportunities with Jokic out, but salaries are certainly adjusted. And then on top of that, this is a difficult matchup. These are two of the slowest teams in the league. Miami also 4th in defensive rating this year. So it's not, a spot that you really want to get to these guys anyway. 5 games without Jokic, Barton's at 1.03 or 1.05 DraftKings points per minute. He's likely to give you around 34 minutes. So, he looks okay, but nothing special. Monte Morris's salaries come up a little bit. JaMychal Green may or may not start, may or may not play more than 18 minutes. He's, obviously he gives you a ceiling at that price, but the minutes are really inconsistent. Jeff Green isn't as good a per minute producer, but his minutes are more solid, but he's up to 4,600. So it's just a spot where if Jokic is out, it makes all of Barton, Gordon, Morris, the Greens look better. But at these prices in this matchup, I still don't think it makes them must plays or anything like that.
Okay. Any of them?
No.
All right. Now let's assume Jokic is in. He's not limited. You worry about none of that. He does go up against the tough front court defense in Miami, but he's the best. He's really like the best fantasy producer there is at this point in the league. Yet he somehow is never the highest priced on slates with all of the stars. He's dealing with a wrist injury. So if he plays, unless he re-aggravates it or something, and I don't imagine that would be the case, but if he plays, there's no reason to think he's going to be limited. We're not dealing with a lower body. We're not dealing with conditioning issues or any, unless he, put on some weight, which is unlikely given that he's been out a week. I would not worry, or 11 days. I would not worry at all that he's not perfectly fine to play his normal allotment of minutes.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. My only minor concern is at this point, I just have no feel for what's actually going on with him because he's been warming up like without a brace and acting like he's going to play, and then he keeps getting ruled out. So I don't know if maybe it's like more serious than they've let on, but either way, I'm with you. If he plays tonight, you're still talking about he last played November 18th. So around 10 days. And not a lower body injury, so there's no reason he hasn't been doing conditioning work. I wouldn't be concerned at all about his playing time unless they specifically come out and say that it's going to be limited. And even then, I would kind of take it with a grain of salt because coaches lie all the time.
So how much are you getting to him if he's active?
I want to play a lot if he's active. This year, he's averaged 1.95 DraftKings points per minute without Porter. Going back to last year, without Murray or Porter on the floor, he's at 1.8 DraftKings points per minute. Assist percentage approaches 40%. Usage rates at 35%. Even if you account for the slow pace and the difficult matchup here, there's a lot of wiggle room off of 1.8 DraftKings points per minute before this guy stops being the clear-cut top play on the slate.
All right. And he's really it then.
Yeah, he's the only piece from Denver that I could see becoming a priority tonight. If he's out, you can mix in some of these other Denver guys. They're fine, but they still don't look like priorities to me. If Jokic is in, I really want to get to a lot of Jokic.
Okay. Let's talk about the Miami Heat on the other side. Butler questionable, Tyler Hero out. And that's not new. He was out last game. He's still dealing with general body soreness or something, I believe it was. By the way, have you noticed that a ton of players are out with non-COVID illnesses right now?
Yeah, like the flu.
Yeah, but it's hilarious that now you have to call it. Like, if this was like 2 years ago, it'd just be flu-like symptoms. Remember that used to be the designation.
Yeah, now it's non-COVID illness, which I appreciate because if they had just stuck with flu-like symptoms, all of these spots you would just be having to like sit around like, all right, is like half the team about to get ruled out or like, what are we doing? So I appreciate that they specify it.
Yeah, 100%. It's just now you're going to be looking at it and your head's going to start spinning. But with Tyler Hero, yeah, he's just dealing with soreness. I'm assuming you have Butler in right now, right?
Yeah, I have Butler in right now.
What are you doing with Butler at the top and Bam Adebayo?
Yeah, I mean, I think Butler and Bam look okay. Hero being out should open up a little bit of usage in the games. The couple of games they've played without Hero so far, you still have about a 29% usage rate for Butler. Bam's actually at 22%, but I would expect that to go up as the sample size grows. Maybe a little bit more for Kyle Lowry as well, but he only has a 17% usage rate in those games. So it kind of seems like Hero's the biggest impact of Hero not being out there has mostly just been the potential minutes that open up for guys like Gabe Vincent. But I still think that, Butler and Adebayo, their ceilings probably become a little bit higher when you're taking 30% usage or so out in Tyler Hero. But it is still, a slow paced game. Denver's been a decent to above average defense this year. So I'm not enamored with Miami, but I do think that 8,200 for Bam looks okay. Lowry's DraftKings price has dropped to 7K, which is a nice little discount from where he's been at. Butler's fine at 9,400. So I'm okay getting to any of those guys, but I'm still not really in love with the matchup here.
Okay. Any value on this team?
Yeah, Gabe Vincent at 3,500 potentially, or 3,800. I can't see because that's on my eye. He's 3,800 on DraftKings. He is likely to play in the mid-20s, which isn't likely to give you a very good result. But if he's playing well, you could potentially get the 30 minutes from him. I think you're going to have better value opening up, but I do think he benefits from Hero being out.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets then and the Chicago Bulls. The Hornets coming into Chicago, 5-point dogs, 222.5 total. This is basically tied for the highest total on the slate. LaMelo Ball is one of the higher priced players on the night. He's coming off a 40-minute game. Was that an OT game?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 146.
Houston, right?
What's up?
I think it was against Houston.
It was. Yeah, it was against Houston. Is he worth it to you today? His ownership pulling, what are we pulling right now? And is ownership free for basketball? Player rankings are free for NBA today. So is the top stat or the NFL top plays tool for the showdown slate, which, in case you were wondering, not only is it the top plays tool, which gives you the probability that the top captain or the optimal captain, the top overall play, all that stuff, but also ownership is in that tool as well. So you're getting the ownership and the top plays tool all in one if you're playing that slate. And stick around for that live before lock after the NBA live before lock. NHL ownership projections also free. But LaMelo Ball is pulling what? No ownership whatsoever. Does that make it viable, or how much does that change too if Jokic is ruled out?
I think it changes just because you're going to have more salary available. You kind of mentioned at the top, there are guys to pay up for, but if you take Jokic out, you have Paul George, who's fine. You have Embiid that some people will play, but it kind of is going to flatten things out, whereas Jokic stands out if he's in. But LaMelo, I think, is at this price point, I'm interested whenever the ownership is low. I'm less interested when it's high because I think he's a little bit overpriced for his average production, but he still has 60 plus fantasy point upside. He's averaged around 1.4 DraftKings points per minute this year. The playing time has been up recently. So if he's not going to get ownership, I like him. If ownership updates between now and lock and he's 10-15% owned, then my opinion changes a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's going to play. How many minutes are you projecting him for today, assuming it's a competitive game?
35, 36.
All right. Yeah, it's an interesting spot pulling no ownership whatsoever. I mean, Miles Bridges and Terry Rozier are two other guys towards the top of the team here. Gordon Hayward being another one of them. Anybody you like from Charlotte today, or is this the team that you're generally not getting a lot of?
It's a team where I don't think there's one individual player that I expect to have tons of exposure to, with the exception of possibly PJ Washington, who
with Mason Plumlee's out, for anyone wondering.
So Washington has been playing, he got up to almost 30 minutes in regulation last game. So at 5,100 on DraftKings with power forward eligibility, I think he's a good value. Excluding him though, talking about LaMelo, Bridges, Rozier, Hayward, Oubre, the guys that we've typically been getting to, I don't think that I necessarily get a lot of any of them because their salaries have adjusted. They're basically all like $500 to $1,000 more expensive tonight than they have been on most recent slates, but they still have the ability to do really well. Like, you're still getting big minutes from Miles Bridges. Rozier has been playing more, and he's been playing really well. Kelly Oubre, when he plays well off the bench, can still give you 28 to 30 minutes. So basically what's happening is these increased salaries are making it so they don't project quite as well from a median standpoint. And so they're a little bit more difficult to get into lineups. But the trade-off you're getting is that the ownership essentially disappears. Like last slate, Kelly Oubre was 14-15% owned off the bench. And that's sort of a point where it's just like, man, I get the ceilings there, but that's really risky. I don't really want to be there. Now you increase the price and he goes back to being the 1% to 2% owned guy that we were playing off the bench before and just, winning tournaments when he scores 40 points. So I like Charlotte in tournaments, but like in cash, I don't really think any of these guys stand out with the exception of Washington.
Yeah, I mean, PJ Washington, this was what we talked about. Like, we did this show 2 games ago and say, like, it's definitely possible that even though Washington only played 6 minutes in his return, that Borrego's just the type of coach that might start him and play him good minutes. Right. And he did. As a matter of fact, he played him 24, had a strong game. and then played him 30 in regulation the following night. So there's a lot to like here. Do I anticipate him having those, high stock totals and just stuffing the stat sheet? Not really, but at 5,100 starting at center, Adam, you could do a whole lot worse than that price point in a 30-minute range against Chicago.
Yeah, without a doubt. He's always been a pretty solid fantasy producer. It's just a matter of getting minutes. This year for a while, like when Plumlee was in, you were getting games where he was just the backup center. But if you're going to get around 30 minutes from him at 5,100, that looks pretty good. 213 minutes played total this year, 1.01 DraftKings points per minute for Washington.
Man, people talking about the brother versus brother narrative.
Yeah. I saw somebody said LaMelo always goes off against his brother. LaMelo's been in the league for a year, so he's probably played Lonzo once, maybe twice.
It would have been twice if both of them play. Well, actually, I don't know because it was a shortened season, so it could have been once for all I know. Yeah, solid sample. So we'll run with that. I don't know what was he said LaMelo or Lonzo always goes off against him.
I think he said LaMelo.
LaMelo.
Yeah, LaMelo.
And Lonzo was what, the Pels last year?
I don't even remember. I think so.
It was the Pels. Yeah, he was on the Pels. Yeah, probably like 2 games. They're not even in the same conference. So, dude, I look, who the hell knows? None of that means anything. Unless you think it does. Maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe LaMelo has something to prove. He really doesn't because he's already better than his brother. So
yeah.
What's there to prove?
40.5 and 37 DraftKings points in his 2 games.
Stop it. Hold on. How many minutes at least? Give me some
26 and 31.
Okay, so not bad.
Yeah, he's fine.
Like typical LaMelo.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it was Lonzo. What did Lonzo do in those games? Must have been Lonzo. Are you pulling it up?
Yeah.
All right. So Lonzo, how many games?
Not Lonzo. It was certainly not Lonzo.
No, okay. It wasn't Lonzo. Maybe it'll be Lonzo.
15 and a half DraftKings points in 37 minutes and then 25.8 in 30.
15 and a half in 37 minutes?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Not great.
He shot 25% and then 28.6%.
Do you think Levine dealing with a non-COVID illness is going to play tonight? Because he wasn't even on the injury report till this morning.
Yeah, that's always a really tough read for me because when it's an illness, it's normally just like, how is he going to feel? And I don't know, I think most pro athletes lean towards the, I feel fine, I'll play through it. But who knows how he feels? Like midday injury report editions never make me feel good. So it feels like a truly questionable spot for me.
Michael Tyler, Ship, seriously, as much DFS as you play, you don't remember where Alonzo played last year? Get the fuck out of here.
No, I mean, every year blends together. And if you told me this was his second year on the Bulls, I'd have said, yeah, okay.
That's the problem. And when you're doing 3 sports, it kind of gets difficult at times.
Right. Like if you say what teams has Lonzo played for in his career, I can very easily answer that. But you could just flat out tell me that Lonzo's been on the Bulls for 2 years now. And I would just say, yeah, okay, that sounds right.
What teams did he play for his career?
Lakers, Pels, Bulls.
Right. And the Timberwolves for a half a season.
That did not happen.
No, see, he knows. He knows. Yeah, look, we all knew where he was and where he's been, but not where he was last year. Who knows, man? Who cares? He's on the Bulls now, Adam, and he's pretty expensive.
Yeah, but I think that you do put there's a couple things to like here. Not the fact that he's playing his brother, but the fact that Charlotte doesn't play defense and plays really fast does suit Lonzo's game really well. If Levine is out, you're potentially getting the ball in Lonzo's hands a bit more. Not necessarily saying that I think his usage rate increases all that much, because I think that would go towards Vooch and go toward DeRozan before, Lonzo starts taking more shots, but potentially more assist opportunities with Levine out. Actually, I would expect there to be more assist opportunities if Levine were out. And then, again, just a game where Lonzo can really push the pace. I do like the matchup for him a lot. That only goes so far. I mean, I'm not typically looking at spots like, oh, matchup's good, just jamming guys in. But I do think that the matchup here makes it a little bit more likely that you just see, one of those Lonzo flirting with a triple-double games.
Yeah, dude, I thought he would improve when Vooch was out. And I mean, I guess he did. I don't know.
He had that one really good shooting game.
Yeah, there was one
against the Lakers.
This is I don't know how many times I have to say it though. This is the same team that if I were to tell you, have you looked at the potential assist numbers on the season for this team? It's ridiculous.
Not recently.
Well, it's stupid. Okay. Lonzo 9. This is per game. Lonzo 9, DeRozan 8.6, Levine 8, Caruso 7.1, Vucevic 7.1. You got 5 guys in between 7 and 9 potential assists per game. It's distributed so evenly amongst this team that I don't even know how much of a difference it does make if Levine is out.
Yeah, I don't expect the
from an assist standpoint. I'm sorry, not a
standpoint.
usage standpoint.
Right. Yeah, it's still, I think, could go a variety of ways. Like even Vooch is capable of getting assists. We know DeRozan can. Caruso / White can play a bigger role. That's the other thing too. If Levine is out and Kobe White steps into more minutes, not that he's Zach Levine, but it's not like you're getting a low usage guy replacing him. So I think the strongest argument I can make in favor of Lonzo is just that he's 7K. He plays a lot of minutes, and I think this is just like a dream spot for his playing style.
Yeah, that's a good point. Where's their dad been lately?
He had to have gotten a cease and desist from either Lonzo or LaMelo.
I think so.
Yeah.
From who?
One of them. I don't know.
From his own kid.
Yeah. One of them had to just be like, shut up and go away.
I mean, it got to be so much, man. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Hornets play the 3rd fastest pace in the league. So
yeah, and they don't play defense. It was probably LaMelo. He probably saw how like Lonzo's been a good but not great player, and everybody just like shits on Lonzo because of his dad. LaMelo, when he got drafted, was probably just like, you need to shut up like right now.
Like, I'm not letting this happen to me.
Right.
Which is funny though, right? Because are you drinking sewer water?
Coffee.
Oh, out of a hold that up. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was some smoothie or something, but
no.
It's funny because I don't associate LaMelo with his dad. Really. I associate Lonzo with his dad.
I associate Lonzo with his dad. Yeah.
That's a great point, man. Yeah. LaMelo had something written up, sent over to Pops. You're right.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, what are we doing with, I want to play both scenarios here though. If Lonzo's in, or I'm sorry, if Levine is in or out, because from a usage standpoint, there's no doubt it makes a difference. Like you said, Kobe White would get more opportunities. Although once again, you'd be seeing so much of the same. What do we do here with the Bulls?
Yeah, so if he's out, I think it increases, like we were saying before, it's still going to be difficult to pinpoint exactly how usage or assists go, because you still have DeRozan, Vooch, and Lonzo that can take on bigger roles. I would think that you get more usage for DeRozan and Vooch, but I also would think you get more minutes for a $3,700 Kobe White, who, if Levine is in, I mentioned this morning with Josh that I had some interest in White in large field tournaments, just kind of hoping that he plays well and gets an extra, 4 to 6 minutes, but it would certainly be a low probability play. If Levine is out, there's a lot more minutes available for a $3,700 White to do some damage. Caruso, I assume, would play more minutes as well at 5,300, although he played 34 last game, so I'm not really sure how much more he can play anyway. But I think really it just makes me want to get to more DeRozan, Vooch, Lonzo than I already am, which I think they're good plays anyway.
Okay. Favorite option here?
I think it's close. Vooch is probably my favorite in terms of I really like the matchup for him, but he's also a center, so that makes it a little bit difficult. He's a little bit less expensive than DeRozan and Levine. But I guess if I had to pick one right now, I guess I would lean toward DeRozan because he's not sick and he's the either highest or second highest usage guy most nights.
All right, that's true. Hey, shout out to our sponsor, Yahoo Fantasy, by the way. I know a lot of you guys have already signed up. You're playing over there. You use the link in the description and the one that our wonderful producer, Jordan Klein, is about to throw into chat right now. You should click that. You should sign up and you should get your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum because it's a $90 value if you haven't signed up at Yahoo yet. And it's not just like you're going, all right, I'll sign up at Adam, give me, I know you're not listening, so I'm going to rephrase it. Give me an old defunct fantasy website that was just crap. There was one called Frafty.
Fantasy Aces wasn't crap, but it's definitely defunct.
Yeah, you remember what happened to them, right?
Yes, I do.
But this isn't one where I'm like, go sign up, and then the biggest prize pool is $13. Winner takes all.
So I don't want to name any that come to mind because I don't know who's still in business. I don't want to offend anyone.
Or who still sponsors us.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
No.
Oh, okay. But Yahoo's got some big contests. Monday Night Baller tonight, 25K up top, $100,000 prize pool. You've got some amazing, the $1 million baller for every NFL slate, 30K baller for NBA tonight. Like, you're going over there signing up. You're playing legitimate contests. They have CSV imports. They have MME. They have good cash games, all of that stuff. And then lower stakes tournaments with big prize pools as well. So if you haven't signed up, use the link we have. When you sign up, deposit $10. Only if you want to do more, you can, obviously. Deposit $10 or more and enter a paid contest. When you do that, they'll email us and give us your email. We'll email you back and get you set up with a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Ownership, player projections, top stack tool, boom bust tool, lineup builder, everything on the site. This isn't like a limited version of a subscription. It's everything, including football, basketball, hockey, MMA, PGA, esports. If they have contests out there, we have content, and we have all the tools for Yahoo as well. That's all you have to do. Enter a paid contest. Once that clears, we'll get you set up. Enter the paid Discord, or the premium Discord as well, the office hours and all of that stuff. I can tell you right now, it's well worth it. $90 Awesemo Plus Platinum. Plus, you'll get $10 back in credit when you sign up and deposit 10 on Yahoo. So it's free. It's actually free. Check it out. Use that link. Awesemo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. All right, let's talk about OKC and Houston. 217 total. Thunder getting 2 points on the road. Now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This is a guy, this has been like one of the DFS darlings for so long, Adam, and everyone just wants him to pan out as a, 50 fantasy point per game guy. He's been good. But he's mostly like a 40 fantasy point per game guy with not much upside, but maybe I'm just down on him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's
not
really
fair. I know, but the range of outcomes is kind of compact when it comes to SGA.
Josh Giddey has cut into him a bit. Last year you had close to a 30% assist percentage for SGA. This year it's at 22.9. Giddey leads the team at 31.6%. So it's what you see it a lot when it's the value. It's basically he's gone from being a point guard to a shooting guard, and that affects his fantasy production, but the usage is still there. The opportunity is still there. He has a 26.6% usage rate. He's playing big minutes in competitive games. And this game is just really appealing because both of these teams, Oklahoma City and Houston, are priced. Their salaries basically factor in how often these teams get blown out because they're terrible. And because, to some extent, the prices are driven by their average playing time, which of course is influenced by blowouts. This game has a 3-point spread. Both of these teams are awful. It's not to say one of them can't find a way to just get destroyed, but there's a good chance that this game just goes down to the wire and is an abomination of basketball, but is good from a fantasy standpoint. And so it makes kind of just like all of these guys underpriced. SGA at 8K looks good. You're assuming he's going to play 35, 36 minutes. Josh Giddey looks great. Point guard with small forward eligibility is always appealing. He's 6,500, leads the team in usage. In assist percentage, 21% usage rate, has the highest non-center rebounding percentage on the team as well amongst the main rotation players. So he looks really good. You can take shots at Baisley, at Robinson Earl. Houston's the fastest team in the league. They are really, really bad. And this is the rare game where Oklahoma City is only a 2-point underdog.
Christopher, no, Awesemo NBA is not $90 a week. Everything on the site is $90 a month, but that's everything in all of our tools. But no, NBA is not $90 a week. I don't know the exact number, but that's crazy. Anyway, do you have top options for OKC?
Josh Giddey, I think, is number one just because of the positional eligibility, the fact that he's averaging the same fantasy points per minute as SGA this year, and he's $1,500 less expensive. Gilgeous-Alexander would be 2. And then Dort, Baisley, Robinson Earl all look pretty good as well.
Okay. Yeah. Aaron Hernandez, that can't be your real name, said Ship didn't even mention Dort. You just mentioned him, but I'm assuming he just means because you love Lou Dort. Always.
Yeah. My concern with Dort whenever SGA is in is that his usage rate goes from like 25.5% to like 21.5%, 22%. He's not going to get you a lot in the way of peripherals. He only has a 6.5% rebounding percentage this year, 9.8% assist percent. Assist percentage. I still think he's a good play. It's a good spot. You certainly have the potential for plenty of turnovers. And it's a fast-paced game. But when comparing him to other guys on this team, I still give the edge to Giddey and Gilgeous-Alexander just because they're giving you so much in the way of peripherals.
How about Houston? How about John Wall? How about them saying, hey, pal, like you can come back, but we can't guarantee a starting spot on the Rockets?
Yeah, pretty crazy. He's like, okay, I want to play. And they're like, all right, we'll let you play. You come off the bench. He's like, no. But
I don't blame them though. I mean,
I don't blame him either.
I don't blame either of them.
Right.
But it's not like Houston has to give him a starting role back when they're clearly rebuilding this basketball team.
Right. But to be fair, like at least from what was released, he said, I want a starting role and the opportunity to maintain it. Like he wasn't, it didn't.
Oh, is that what he said?
That's what was released. I don't know what he actually said, but
who would you start him over? Obviously,
Jalen Green is absolutely.
You could say anybody, but I just mean like in the sense of future building this team.
I mean, either Green or Porter. I mean, you could get Porter playing. You know, like he's not a natural point guard. Porter, I mean, so like you could get him kind of playing like a 6-man role off the bench. But yeah, it's. I mostly not, feel bad's not the right word, but like John Wall just like cannot do anything to win amongst just the general, like NBA fans. It's like he's sitting out and everybody's like, oh, he's getting $41 million to sit on the bench. Like, what the hell? And then he's like, all right, I want to play, but I want to start. And they're like, oh, how dare you want to start? Like, why don't you just come off the bench?
Oh, I don't have an issue with him saying that. Why wouldn't you want to start?
Right.
But I don't blame Houston either, is all I'm saying. Like, I don't think they have to. Whatever. I forgot you're a Washington fan, so I know you have a soft spot for John Wall.
Oh yeah, absolutely love John Wall.
Yeah, I can tell. You're a ride for that dude. Yeah, could he go somewhere and win? Could he go somewhere and help a team win?
I think it depends on the ego at this point, but yeah.
Can he go to Philly as their starting point guard alongside Harrison Embiid next to Seth Curry and help them win?
If he's healthy, yes. And he seemed healthy when he played last year. I was actually really pleasantly surprised with how he played. But like he kind of butted heads with Beal in Washington, it seemed, over who was going to be the main offensive guy. But assuming that he's willing to take that role, like I think can do more to facilitate. He can, push the pace. I think is kind of like he'd bring similar things as Westbrook, but not quite as bad in the areas where Westbrook is bad.
Dude, what about like a 6-man?
Right. That's what I think if he's willing to take on a role like that on a good team, he would be a good piece. If he is going to go in there and try and, Russell Westbrook his way, through Joel Embiid, basically, then no, he's not going to be a plus.
Hey, hit that thumbs up. We're 97 away from 500. And we turn this baby over to Josh Engelman and Greg Ehrenberg, take you up till tip at 7 p.m. If you haven't done so, only takes a second. Help us combat the YouTube overlords. I mean, I guess they're working. They're not working for us with that dislike removal. No, because our ratios are solid. They're hurting us. People come in here, they're like, oh shit, 1,100 likes to 20 dislikes and 19 were for Josh. This is good stuff. Do you like anything else for Houston?
Did we talk about Houston?
I'm sorry. We talked about John Wall.
Yeah, we talked about OKC and then John Wall,
who is out and hasn't played all year. What do you think about Houston? They're laying 2 points. There should be a competitive game between two really bad teams.
Yeah, Houston is Jimmy Butler's out.
Oh, wow.
Houston.
Okay. Can we revisit that real quick just for anybody that's jumping in now?
Yeah, do you want to go back to it after the Houston part?
Yeah, sure. And yeah, we'll talk because Tyler Hero's out as well.
Yeah. So Houston is, I really like these Houston players for the same reason I liked OKC. The salaries did come up quite a bit after Houston's last game, but the thing you need to keep in mind is they were wildly underpriced there. Like Kevin Porter Jr. was 5,800 and he was 48% owned or something. Christian Wood was pushing 40%. So adding $1,000 to their salaries on DraftKings still doesn't make them overpriced. It just makes them a little bit closer to correct. They're still really cheap on FanDuel. Porter 6,300, Wood I believe is 7,400, but there's still value here because the prices are still influenced by the fact that Houston just gets destroyed so often and you get, 27, 28 minutes, but pretty much all season long in competitive games, these starters have been playing huge minutes when the game's close. So this game likely to be close against OKC. There's a good chance you're getting 35, 36 minutes from Christian Wood, who has produced between 1.15 and 1.2 DraftKings points per minute this year. Kevin Porter Jr. is around the fantasy point per minute guy, likely to play 36 minutes tonight. Jayshawn Tate is a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy, likely to play 30 to 32 minutes. Eric Gordon at 5,200 is fine. It really just opens up a lot here. You can take some shots at Garrison Matthews, who played a bunch of minutes last game. I'm not very confident in that because I think that if he doesn't play well, you just can see Armani Brooks or Kenyon Martin or other guys cut into those minutes. But the point being that Houston, this is likely to be a competitive game, and Houston is basically priced to be blown out most nights.
All right. Well, are there any priority options from either side of this one that you look at and you say, all right, definitely trying to get these guys into my lineups tonight? Or is there, or a lot of them, I'll be fine if they are in my lineup tonight, because I just want to throw out there that, and you talked about some of this, but the ownership pulled right now on the Houston side is very, very high on a couple of players.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is likely to be my highest owned game. You do certainly want to be aware of the ownership, but Jayshawn Tate, Kevin Porter, Christian Wood all look like priorities from the Houston side. From the OKC side, I think you can make a good case for any of the five starters, but I think Giddey is number one, either Gilgeous-Alexander or Dort number two. Baisley, Robinson, Earl look pretty solid as well. But yeah, I just think in general, I'm going to be getting to a lot of this game.
Okay. Indy, Minnesota, Pacers.
Did you want to go to Miami?
2. Oh, yeah, please. Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler out. Tyler Hero was already out. So you got two guards that are sidelined today against the Denver Nuggets. 7:30 start.
So one other quick thing. Derek Favors is out for OKC. That helps to solidify Jeremiah Robinson Earl's minutes. Maybe I already kind of thought 3,500 for Pogochevsky was an interesting spot to roll the dice because Kenrich Williams is out. Taking Favors out too, potentially you get some smaller lineups. So I think 3,500 for Pogochevsky is interesting in tournaments. Going to the Miami side now. Going to the Miami side, still obviously an unappealing spot, but taking out Jimmy Butler, taking out Tyler Hero, that's a lot of usage that is now available to go to Kyle Lowry, to go to Bam Adebayo. So I think that it obviously makes both of those guys look better. You should see more minutes for Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, and they're cheap, So I think that they both are going to look like reasonable values here. Without Butler or Hero on the floor this year, we don't have much of a sample. Lowry's only played 57 minutes, but he has a 22.4% usage rate and a 47% assist percentage. Bam has only played he's only played 30 minutes. He has a 20.5% usage rate, but I think you can pretty much throw that out. Gabe Vincent, 67 minutes, 23.9% usage rate. Strus has played 55 minutes with a 10% usage rate, but you're mostly just looking at the minutes from those guys. So interested to see what the starting lineup looks like, but I would think that Vincent is the biggest beneficiary in terms of minutes, followed by Strus.
Okay. Where are we at on the Pacers today?
Malcolm Brogdon.
Miles Turner questionable with a non-COVID illness.
Yeah, so that's another one that we'll have to keep an eye on. Not really sure exactly how they would look if he sits. You could see Goga slide into the starting lineup. You could also just see like Keelan Martin go back into the starting lineup with Sabonis sliding to the 5. But I do think that if Turner sits, it does make Sabonis look better because if Goga starts, I think they probably would still stagger Sabonis. So he's getting backup center minutes and then which are productive. And then if, Sabonis starts at center, obviously he's getting center minutes. So if Turner is out, Sabonis looks better. If Turner is in, I think Turner is a quality option in tournaments. He's likely to play 30 to 32 minutes. Minnesota has allowed their opponents to have the 7th most blocks per game this year. Miles Turner is averaging 4.8 blocks per 100 possessions. So sets up as a nice spot for him to block a bunch of shots here. Malcolm Brogdon really stands out at 7,400. He's averaged about 34 minutes per game in the games that he's played with Karis LeVert and with Sabonis this year. But that's a little bit misleading because you had 2 massive blowouts and you had that one game where all the starters got benched. If you toss those 3 games and look at the other 7, he's averaging about 36.6 minutes per game in regulation. He's still playing huge minutes. He's over a fantasy point per minute. So He looks good. And then Karis LeVert at 5,300 getting quite a bit of ownership, but I think it's deserved because LeVert's averaged about 0.9 fantasy points per minute in the games he's played with Brogdon this year. For most of the year, he's been limited to 26, 27 minutes. But 2 games ago, he played 34 minutes against Toronto. Last game yesterday, he played about 27 or 28 minutes, but that was only in 3 quarters of a blowout loss to Milwaukee. He was clearly on pace to play low to mid 30s again if that game were competitive. 5,300 is way too cheap if you're going to get 30 plus minutes from Karis LeVert.
Hey, Michael Green is questionable. Might not sound like much, but what happens in the event that he ends up not playing and Jokic is also out?
Zeke Naji scores 100 fantasy points.
Does Zeke Naji not become a phenomenal option at that rate? He's already getting 15 minutes back-to-back games since he returned, and then JaMychal Green would be out along with Jokic. Just trying to set the scenario here in the event that JaMychal Green doesn't play. I know his minutes are all over the place, but still.
Yeah, I think it depends on the starting lineup, kind of how confident I would be in Naji. But there would certainly be a path to more playing time there. You could get, because potentially you can get Jeff Green starting at the 5. They throw Austin Rivers into the starting lineup or something. And Naji is still is the backup center. So if in that case, he would have a ceiling, but he'd be risky because, he's just coming off the bench. But if he were to start, if they just replaced JaMychal Green with Naji, then he looks phenomenal.
Josh is in a heated battle with people over this John Wall thing. Was John Wall?
He moved on from Jason Kidd.
Yeah. Was John Wall ever a top NBA player?
In the sense
10.
of top 5 in the league or something?
Top 10.
No.
Okay. You want to hit on anything else for the Pacers, or should we go to Minnesota here?
I think that's it from the Pacers.
So let me ask you something. With Jared Vanderbilt and Jaden McDaniels both questionable, if these guys are out, what does that open up for us?
Sorry, I was reading the John Wall
If
stuff.
McDaniels and Vanderbilt are out, what does that open up for us?
I think it solidifies Malik Beasley's minutes. He's 4,400. He's played 28 and 24 minutes in the games without Beverly. But last game you saw Vanderbilt sub in and close over him. If you take both of those guys out, it's just opening up more wing minutes. So I think it would make Beasley look like an even better value. As he is right now, he's risky, but does look decent at low ownership. If you take both of those guys out, I think it's very likely he plays more than 30 minutes.
Okay. So then we'll start it off assuming everyone's in. Beverly's been out for a while now. Towns, Edwards, and Russell at the top. Where do we go with this trio?
Yeah, they all look good. I think Edwards and Russell look the best. Since he came back from injury on November 8th, Russell has averaged about 34 minutes per game. He's averaged 1.17 DraftKings points per minute, has a 27% usage rate and a 30% assist percentage. All of that looks really good at this salary. Anthony Edwards has seen his usage rate dip a bit. He's at 26.2% in those games since Russell came back as a result of, not only playing alongside Russell, but Russell also playing more minutes than he was earlier in the year. But the nice thing about Edwards is we know that when he's scoring, he's still willing to just take over offensively, and you can really see him dominate a game still. We saw it a couple of nights ago against Miami. And he also has guard and forward eligibility, which makes it really easy to get him into lineups. He's still playing huge minutes as well. So Russell and Edwards, I think, are going to be really easy to get to. Towns, you're never really wrong for getting there, but how interested I am in him will in part depend on if I have to give a center spot to Jokic, but also Miles Turner, if he's out and, Goga doesn't start, for example, that's another center that I don't have to worry about getting to. So kind of dependent on injury news elsewhere, how much or how easy it's going to be to get Towns in the lineups, I think.
Do you have any other interest in the Timberwolves?
Vanderbilt's always okay. But at 4,800, I wouldn't say he's a priority. I think for me, the priorities are pretty much Edwards, Russell, and then throw some darts at Malik Beasley now that he's not likely to be popular.
Okay. So on the Cleveland, if we're talking Cleveland and Dallas, Cleveland 7-point dogs against Dallas Mavericks. Chetty Osman's questionable, and then Dean Wade coming into this one is doubtful. What do you do, if anything, with the front court for Cleveland or the wings?
The front court or the wings?
Either.
Okay.
I'm saying the front court or the wings before we get to the guard position.
Okay, got it. So on DraftKings, there's not a whole lot that stands out. I think 7,500 for Jared Allen is reasonable. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy. He's still been playing mid 30s in minutes. Even last game with Evan Mobley back and Mobley playing around 33 to 34 minutes and Kevin Love available, you still got 35 or 36 minutes from Allen, but it's still just difficult to point to him as a priority when there's plenty of other centers you can go to. Josh mentioned it on the show this morning, and I agree completely though. On FanDuel, Jared Allen has power forward eligibility, which just makes it way easier to get him into lineups. I think it makes him look like a really good option there.
What about Markkanen and small forward, power forward eligibility, getting considerable minutes since he's returned?
Yeah, I think he looks fine. 5,600 is reasonable. He's likely to play 30 to 32 minutes here. For the season, he's not on the Bulls anymore, so that's not going to help me. I remember who he played for last year. For the season, Markkanen, I think, has been around like 0.9, 0.92 DraftKings points per minute. So he looks fine. Not a priority, but not, he's kind of just there.
Josh is such a tyrant, man.
Is
just timing people out.
Something else.
Just timing people out for disagreeing with him. He's a tyrant. He goes, I can't take this stupidity anymore, and time someone out for 300 seconds. That's just outrageous.
Someone needs to get him going. If they haven't already, someone needs to get him going on John Wall versus Westbrook, because I think his head might explode.
That's why he timed him out.
What? So did Josh say Westbrook was better or Wall was better?
He said Westbrook was not better than John Wall.
Josh said that?
No, the other guy did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is surprising because Josh hates Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I thought forcing Josh to take a stand on one of those two would.
Josh went the opposite direction of what you would have thought.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, me too. Do you like any other guard action for Cleveland today?
Not really. Garland's playing a lot of minutes, so there's still potential there, but he's priced for it at this point. I don't see a lot, a lot of value left there. Rubio's priced up as well. So I think it's mostly front court and wings if I am taking shots on Cleveland.
All right. Where are you at on Luka today?
I think he's kind of tough to get to, but he's another one where it sort of depends on Jokic. Like if you take Jokic out, there's just more lineups where you can spend up and get to Luka, but I think I'll probably just kind of end up going a little bit more balanced. You're never wrong for getting to him, but it's just a really expensive price tag when he's only point guard eligible on DraftKings. So that makes the opportunity cost a little bit higher. It just gives you less options ways to roster him. He's good and the ceiling is certainly there, but it's not like he produces at anywhere near a Jokic type level on a per minute basis. And he's only $100 less expensive. I think that there's just plenty of guards I can get to that I can save a lot of money off of him.
Thanks for the 500 likes, guys. Appreciate you. Got there pretty easy. Again, Engelman, Ehrenberg coming up next 15 minutes from now. Do you want to hit on anything else from Dallas not named Luka Doncic? If you pull our ownership up use the promo code CYBER. How did I almost forget about that? Use the promo code CYBER, 75% off everything on the site for the week. It's $7.50. You'll get it for all the tools I mentioned before. CYBER, all caps. Go to awesemo.com/promo. I don't even think you have the promos. You don't even have to type it in. Jordan, put it on the screen if you didn't already. My man, guys. And you just click it. It'll be right there. This isn't some nonsense where you go to like Walmart and the TV says $5.99 and you're like, oh, that's a great deal because it was $8.99 yesterday. But really, they just made it $8.99 yesterday when it was $5.99 the day before. They're not really giving you a discount on anything. Of course not. They're just making it look like they marked it down. It's all psychology, not this. This is legitimate. We don't ever charge $7.50 for the entire week of everything on the site. One of the best promos we're going to run, and it's only good through tonight. Jordan, did we shut this down? This is not a sales tactic either. I'm dead serious about this. I saw Tom mention something. Did we shut it down for a certain period of time? I think Tom wanted to shut it down like up until 7 or something, right? Okay. That is so the site doesn't run slow if a bunch of people are jumping in. But if you want to get in on it, Cyber, use that promo code, awesemo.com/promos. Everything on the site for the entire week, Awesemo plus Platinum, $7.50, every single sport, every single tool. And if you want to get Fantasy Cruncher add-on, you can do that for the week as well. All right. Talk to me about the rest of Dallas today. Maxi Kleber getting a little bit of love.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the most interesting thing from Dallas is what the starting lineup looks like. Willie Cauley-Stein is out. He's been starting and playing around 10 minutes. Then you were getting Powell playing, 10 to 15 minutes and Kleber getting a little bit more run. Jalen Brunson is probable. So if Maxi is coming off the bench behind Powell, I think it's likely you get like 24 to 26 minutes. But if Maxi starts, I think that you potentially are just getting, 32 minutes or so, which would make him look like a good value.
Anything else you want to get to?
Not really. Porzingis is priced up from when Luka was out, so I think it's pretty difficult to get him.
Okay. Talk to me about, well, actually, hold on a second. Let me make sure. Yeah, Washington. All right, let's talk about the Wizards here. We got a few games to go. Washington on the road against the Spurs, coming in as 2.5-point favorites in San Antonio. Adam, where are we starting up top of the team with Bradley Beal? And then it pretty much just falls off a cliff in terms of salary for the rest of these guys.
Washington, as usual, I think is a pretty difficult team to get to. They're, for all intents and purposes, healthy. Beal is like he gives you a ceiling because he's going to have a game or two at least this year probably where he gets like 50 actual points, but Dinwiddie cuts into his production. Dinwiddie's not exactly a low usage guy, but he's going to get a lot of assists as well. It's just really difficult to pay the salary for Beal, even in a pace up spot against San Antonio. Really, the spot that I'm most interested in from Washington is the same as usual, taking some shots at low owned Montrezl Harrell / Daniel Gafford, obviously not in the same lineups, but on average, they're priced correctly, but you're still going to get some games where Harrell plays well and gets 28 to 30 minutes. You're going to get some other games where Gafford plays well and gets 24 minutes. In those games, they're likely to exceed their salary. So those, I think, are the two guys I would get to the most, but I don't really anticipate getting the much of Washington.
Okay. Do you anticipate getting to a decent amount of the Spurs? You got a couple notable injuries there, Adam.
Yeah, San Antonio, it's a tough spot. Washington's one of the slower teams in the league. They're one of the better defensive teams, but there are guys missing here. Devin Vassell is out. Doug McDermott is out. And so we haven't really seen that translate to more minutes for Lonnie Walker, which has been kind of surprising. But we have seen Kelden Johnson playing huge minutes lately. He played 38 minutes 2 games ago. He played 34 minutes last game and lost about 5 minutes to garbage time. He's around a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. So he projects well. DeJounte Murray, we know, has been great this year. He's likely to play 35 to 36 minutes. He's averaged 1.33 DraftKings points per minute, leads the team in usage rate, leads the team in assist percentage, has the highest rebounding percentage outside of Jakob Poeltl and Drew Eubanks, which is obviously impressive for a guard. So he looks good. Jakob Poeltl, averaging 1.07 DraftKings points per minute in his starts this year. He's averaged about 30 minutes per start. You're going up against a Washington team that's likely to play a center for 48 minutes. So you could certainly see 32, 33 minutes from Poeltl here. I think he's underpriced. And then Derek White hasn't been great this year, but he's playing a ton of minutes right now with Vassell and McDermott out. Played about 37 minutes last game. I think that it's likely you see 35, 36 from him again. So he's certainly someone that can pay off his salary just based on the amount of time he's on the floor. So there's a lot to get to from the Spurs. I think in terms of priorities, Johnson and Poeltl I like Johnson and Poeltl a little bit more than I like White. I just think they produce at a little bit higher level. The issue with Poeltl is that he's a center, but I think he looks like one of the better center options today. Murray, clearly the top projected guy here and just a great option where you can get to him.
Top options from San Antonio?
Just did that.
I was trying to listen. I'm sorry. I was trying to DM somebody hosting one of our shows coming up about something. All right. So we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Multitasking's tough sometimes, I don't know why I'd apologize to you for not listening, right?
I started to just do it again and let you off the hook, and then I was just like, yeah, cool. I've done it enough lately that
Ben does that. Like he just won't correct me and he'll keep going. And then I'll be like, did you just say that? And he'll say, yeah. They go, well, why'd you say it again? And he'd say, well, you asked me.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Anyway, dope Ethan, you're slipping off. I know, man. I can't be perfect around here. Hey, shout out to everybody that has crushed recently and is inducted into the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Just want to shout you guys out real quick, and then we'll wrap these 2 games up here. Actually making pretty good time today. We'll get to Portland, Utah, and New Orleans and the LA Clippers. Hey, Eric Lindquist, by the way, what's the best way to recover from a bad Sunday morning? have a decent little NBA night. Love this company and really love our tools. Eric, coming up, NFL Live Before Lock, man. $4,000 bank right there. Congratulations. You want to get up here, download the avatar at awesemo.com/avatar and use it on Yahoo, FanDuel, DraftKings. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and boom, we'll get you up here. We'll show you some love on Twitter as well. So does everybody else. You get your shout out, you get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and more than anything, you win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. All you got to do is tweet your wins at Awesemo, HOF, when you do it. Hit up Adam and myself in that as well when you do so. Sean F., thanks, Awesemo, and the whole crew. I was in first for a while, came up short. Nevertheless, great showing. Special shout out to Lavi D. Convinced me to stick with my guy and play Fournette. Yeah, insane game from Fournette. Congrats, Sean. And then Elway's Army with a solid $1,300 win in first place. A lot of fire emojis in there. Hockey action. Sean Geezy, $1,000 first place. Congrats, Sean. That is awesome. In the mini max. And then Jordan Lockhart still got it, made up for it. Yeah, this guy, unbelievable, dude. Another $30,000 win. I see a couple shit my money's in there as well. Look,
yeah, tied with myself for fourth.
Nice. Two different lineups, same score.
Yeah, two different lineups, same score.
Nice. All right. Well, congrats, Jordan. Once again, good stuff. I thought we were going to have Sean's. Did you see Sean John's odd shopper parlay in here that did he use with the player prop tool?
I think I heard he hit for like 60K or something.
150.
Oh, that's more than 60.
It was a $56 bet or $5,600 bet. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Which they take some balls right there.
Yeah.
Into, I think it was like, what was it, Jordan? 156,000 or something. I thought it would be in here, but yeah, he used Odd Shopper, put that baby together real quick. Oddshopper.com, totally free, man. You can win 150. I'm kidding, but that was an awesome win. And that parlay tool we have is pretty damn awesome as well. So congrats to you guys. Rock the avatar. Hit us up when you win. Even if it's not qualified, you still want to get shouted out. We might toss you up here anyway. All right, let's talk about Portland and Utah, Adam. Blazers +7 on the road, 223 total, highest on the slate. There's no real big injury news outside of Norman Powell sitting for the Blazers. What does that do?
So we've gotten 2 games earlier this year where Powell was out. Nas Little started those, played 30 minutes per game. We've already gotten the announcement that Tony Snell is starting in Powell's place tonight. That is not someone that I would recommend playing in DFS. His job is going to be to chase Donovan Mitchell / Mike Conley / whoever else has the ball around the floor and not do anything of note from a fantasy standpoint. It does make Nas Little a little bit riskier, but I still think he's a good value. Little's averaged about 22 minutes per game this year, 0.85 DraftKings points per minute. Powell being out should give him at least a couple more minutes. I think it's pretty unlikely that Snell just starts playing, 32 to 33 minutes. So I think there's a good chance that you get around 26 minutes or so from Little. And if that's the case, he projects as a pretty decent value. Robert Covington is cheap as well at 3,800 on DraftKings. You could potentially see a little bit more Anthony Simons, a couple minutes more as well. So I think that there is still some value to be had here. I think Little is a little bit, a little bit lower of a priority now that he's coming off the bench, but I still think he's a good value.
Okay. By the way, the Jokic brothers are planning on being in attendance tonight for the rematch against Miami. That's going to be much must-watch TV.
So Jokic has to be playing, right?
That's what I'm thinking, right? They're planning on being there.
He's still not.
What's up?
Heath is still not.
I don't know. Udonis Haslam sends a warning to the Jokic brothers, who reportedly might show up for the rematch in Miami. This is getting good, bro.
Oh, man. I forgot about Haslam.
Those guys are monsters. Haslam looks like he's 80. I know he's up there, but that's amazing. Guy's still playing. Well, watching, but on a team.
Yeah, hey, he's basically the hockey enforcer for the Heat.
It's kind of cool, though, right?
Yeah, and more teams should do that.
They absolutely should. Anything else for Portland that you want to touch on?
Nurkic at 6,300 is kind of interesting in tournaments. 2 games ago, he played 32 minutes against Sacramento, and that was noteworthy because we just haven't seen that sort of run from him all season long. Last game, he only played 24 minutes, but I don't think that really matters because it was against Golden State. That's not a spot where you would expect Nurkic to play full minutes anyway. So I'm really interested to see what the rotation looks like here against an actual center in Rudy Gobert. I think there is a chance that you get 30 to 32 minutes from Nurkic, and we know he's a really good per minute fantasy producer. But all of that being said, he's also projected for 10% ownership right now. So I think the ownership's about where it should be. I don't really feel strongly one way or the other, but he is certainly underpriced if he happens to play 30 plus minutes again. I just, don't know how likely that is.
Man, I hope we don't get any ejections tonight from some big name players. That would suck.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't project for it. I'm just saying, like this.
Yeah, well, I was just kind of trying to think of like who would even do anything. Like, I don't think Jokic is going to go out of his way to like start anything. Morris is out.
True.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Butler's out. Butler was all heated last time.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, Butler is out.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, PJ Tucker will probably, unless they sub in Haslam. Like, if there's any issues, PJ Tucker will handle it from the Miami side.
Dude, if Haslam comes in like a fourth line hockey player.
Dude, what if they just like messed with Jokic and started Haslam at center?
Dude, that'd be so great. That'd be fun. And just like say, give us 30 good seconds, Udonis.
Yeah. If Miami announces Haslam is starting at center, do you think Malone just starts somebody else?
Maybe. Zeke Naji getting big run.
Yeah.
All right. We're not predicting ejections. We literally just said you can't project for that. But anyway, and what do you like for Utah? Only thing here, Royce O'Neal questionable coming into this game.
So with Utah, I think that the salary on Donovan Mitchell looks really good at 8,100. He's about a 1.3 DraftKings point per minute guy, likely to play 32, 33 minutes if Portland is able to hang in this game. So he looks pretty good there. Gobert certainly a strong option, kind of like Karl Anthony Towns, where I'm going to be happy with whatever amount of Gobert I get to, but I think he ends up being easier to get to if, for example, Jokic and or Miles Turner don't play. But he looks good either way. And then the rest of these pieces, it's just what it normally is for Utah. Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Bojan Bogdanovic, any of these guys are reasonable sort of like one-off type plays in tournaments. They're pretty cheap. They're not bad, but they don't stand out as priorities. The one spot that I do think you need to pay attention to news-wise is Royce O'Neal being questionable. Rudy Gay played about 24 minutes in his absence last game. If you get 24 plus minutes from Rudy Gay at 4K, he's going to look like a really good value.
Okay. Hey, let's close it out. And then Josh and Greg coming up next. After that, you've got NFL Live Before Lock for Seattle and Washington with Eric, with Neil, with Matt Savoca, Pelicans, LA Clippers. Adam, I'll give you the time you need to break this one down. Pelicans are 7-point dogs, 210.5 total for this one.
Yeah, I think the Clippers look really interesting here, but I'll start on the Pel side. There's some spots to look at in tournaments. I think Brandon Ingram at 7,500 is, he has a high ceiling. He's a 30% usage guy. The Pels as a whole are terrible, but if they're able to hang in this game, there's a good chance that he's playing well. Joe Val's salary has come down. His playing time hasn't been he hasn't been playing a lot recently, but they've been in a lot of blowouts. There's also a game where he was in massive foul trouble. So I still think it's likely if this game's competitive that he plays around 32 minutes or so. He's averaged about 1.25 fantasy points per minute with Ingram in. So those guys both look like, I think, the highest ceiling guys. You have cheap pricing on Devontae Graham, Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Herbert Jones, even, who's playing a lot of minutes. Those guys are all reasonable, but I wouldn't say priorities. On the Clipper side, I think it gets really interesting because at least right now, their injury report, it's just Nick Batum being out and then obviously Kawhi. I thought there was a chance that maybe we'd see like Marcus Morris resting after playing a ton of minutes yesterday, but that's not the case. And this is a good matchup for them. The Pelicans are one of the worst defenses in the league, and there's some pretty favorable pricing here. Paul George obviously stands out. He's 10-2 on DraftKings, 9,200 on FanDuel. He's averaged about 1.35 DraftKings points per minute this year and 36 minutes per game. So he looks really good. Reggie Jackson is playing a ton of minutes. He's 6,100. But outside of that, right now on DraftKings, 4% projected ownership to Marcus Morris, 3% to Eric Bledsoe, 1% to Ivica Zubac. Morris played 34 minutes yesterday. It's not looking like he's on any sort of restriction here. I think that 4,600 is a really good price tag for him. Eric Bledsoe at 5,200. We know the minutes can kind of come and go, but he has the potential to play 32 plus minutes here. And then Zubac, especially if guys like Miles Turner, or, if like Turner ends up not playing, Zubac's in a spot here where he could play 26 or 27 minutes. Looks pretty interesting at low ownership as well.
Top option, since we didn't have a ton of time on these, for these two late games, the Portland, Utah, and then Pels, Clippers. Who are your top options from these two games?
Donovan Mitchell from the first game, Nas Little if you need value, but again, a little bit riskier coming off the bench. From the Pels and Clippers game, I think Paul George, and I think Paul George is the priority, but from a tournament standpoint, I really like Bledsoe and Marcus Morris.
All right. Appreciate you guys. As always, best of luck tonight. Basketball, football, whatever it is, we got you covered going up to lock for both of them. Hit that thumbs up while you're waiting for Josh and Greg, or hit the thumbs down. Doesn't matter at this point now, does it? We can't see it. YouTube getting soft. Follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS, me at Lafay_D, and shout out your boy Jordan Klein behind the virtual glass producing today's show. These guys coming up right 1 minute from now on Live Before Lock. It's the Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo.com, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Sorry. Peace.
And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Monday, November 29th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Greg Ehrenberg. We are brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. And boy, oh boy, we're going to have a lot to talk about over this next 55 minutes. People slowly but surely getting ruled out. Things are looking a little bit different than they did, I don't know, even just a half hour ago. Before we do anything, 2,500 people, hit that like button. We're at like 600 and change. Laffy did a decent job. 800 should be in our sites pretty quickly. So hit that thumbs up. That's what we want to see. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Greg, how are you?
I'm good. I haven't done shows for a few days. It was my brother's wedding this weekend. That was a lot of fun. There was Thanksgiving before then. So good stretch for me. Also, you mentioned the injury report. I'm just going to read off here all the names of the players who are significant. They're waiting for updates on. Nikola Jokic, questionable. Zach LaVine, questionable. Miles Turner, questionable. Jared Vanderbilt is questionable. Bones Highland is questionable. Royce O'Neal is questionable. So the next 54 minutes should be a lot of guys getting ruled out and you and I talking about it and changing our lineups every 5 minutes.
Yeah. What's the biggest piece of news that you're waiting on right now?
Probably Zach LaVine. Because I'm assuming, maybe we're different on this. I'm assuming Jokic plays right now. It's just been so long that Jokic has been on the injury report list as questionable. And I'm going to feel like an idiot if he gets ruled out and I have to change everything again. But eventually he has to play, right? So I'm thinking this is finally the day he gets back in action. LaVine, I really have no clue, though.
Yeah, I mean, I've been assuming that Jokic was playing since he's been out. I never thought he was going to miss a single game. So I'm certainly going a little bit harder for him today. But I agree. I think the LaVine piece is pretty interesting. It just creates like a pretty sizable trickle down effect. Oh, great. Kyle Kuzma, fresh threads. That's my top shot for today. Fantastic. What a garbage pack. Grayson Allen, Cody Martin, Tobias Harris, and Kyle Kuzma. Blech. Anybody want them? They're all yours.
I don't. I've not looked at Top Shot in forever.
I buy every pack that I possibly can.
How's
Never
that
know
going?
when you're just going to step in shit. I mean, great. Highly profitable at Top Shot. Buoyed by everything at the beginning where all you had to do was open a pack and make 5 times your money.
Well, that's
Miles
true.
Turner news is important too.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, you had asked most important. So
Yeah.
For me, single most important is Zach. If I had to come up with a second most important, it would be Miles Turner for a couple of reasons. First of all, there'd be a lot of value. And then obviously also Sabonis's minutes have been really weird this year. And I just assume he plays a massive role if there's no Miles Turner in the rotation.
You would think. I don't totally trust.
Rick Carlisle does
Not
not
getting
seem to
the-
like Rick Carlisle does not seem to like Domantas Sabonis very much.
Which is really weird considering I thought he would love Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, he does not. There's been a bunch of games where I've rostered Domantas Sabonis, be like, oh, Sabonis is crushing to the first quarter and a half, and then he just doesn't play in the fourth quarter. There's been numerous games he's not closed out this year. And I remember one game in particular where everybody was victory lapping Sabonis scoring like 30 fantasy points in the first quarter, and he finished with like 41 that night.
All right, let's start on the guard side, and we're going to start pretty easily. It's been a while since you and I have had the ability to just casually go into what was originally prepared for this show. So let's talk about some of the higher owned guards on this slate. I'm looking at it from a FanDuel perspective right now. If you've got DraftKings, that'll work as well. Josh Giddey pulling a ton of ownership. Kevin Porter Jr. does have guard eligibility on FanDuel. Those are 2 of the 3 highest owned guys. Kyle Lowry is now pretty aggressively owned on FanDuel. I find that to be pretty interesting at 6,800. Paul George, heavily owned. Karis LeVert, getting a little bit more than I would have been expecting. What stands out most to you of the guys that are chalky at guard?
Yeah, so for starters, I don't see anybody that's popular as being massively problematic, especially on DraftKings, because some of the guys that are picking up a lot of ownership, I like. I mean, 28% Kyle Lowry, that's totally reasonable to me with no Jimmy Butler now and no Tyler Hero for the Miami Heat. I thought that he was going to be way more popular than that on DraftKings, especially in my lineups. Over on FanDuel, it's 6,800. Once again, 31% ownership when the Heat team is so banged up right now. I don't think the Denver Nuggets present a very difficult matchup considering that their current state. So to me, I think Kyle Lowry is a good chalk play. Kevin Porter Jr., that seems like an aggressive amount of ownership on him, in my opinion. And it's not that I don't have him projected well, just not something that would make him be the number 1 overall most rostered point guard on FanDuel.
So I sort of get it, just because obviously playing Oklahoma City probably helps out a little bit. I am pretty significantly under the field on Porter, but I understand, like, he does from a cash perspective. I understand going to Kevin Porter Jr. in this. I think 30 or wherever he is in the 30s is a little high. So I had something in the neighborhood of 20 earlier. That made me feel pretty good. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, we're on the same page there for Kevin Porter.
Yeah, and then, I mean, the other thing, too, is just comparing players. Like, I have Kyle Lowry projected for way more fantasy points than I have Kevin Porter Jr. projected for, and they have the same. Oh, well, actually, Kevin Porter Jr. is slightly more ownership, $500 less expensive, but even so.
I think I'm going to be a little bit lighter on Lowry as well. The just point guard eligibility isn't helpful, at least, is the best way to say that. And there's just so many guys in and around that area that I don't think are all that different, whether it's Kevin Porter that we talked about, Lonzo at 6,700, potentially getting a little bit of extra love if Zach LaVine happens to not play. I have LaVine in. I still like Lonzo at 9% ownership from a tournament perspective. Dinwiddie is 3% owned. We've got Malcolm Brogdon, a little bit more expensive than Kyle Lowry. I like him quite a bit. I just think there's like an overwhelming amount of options, and I don't necessarily think that I need to go immediately to Kyle Lowry. Clearly, I think he's a good play and significantly better now that Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler aren't in. But I'm seeing him as another guy where I don't feel like that's the guy that I need to go over the field on.
Yeah, so I just have Kyle Lowry projected very highly. So I'm on a lot of Heat guys today, especially on DraftKings, where, you know, we've got even like PJ Tucker's making this on my lineups at 3,500. And then we got guys like Max Strus, Duncan Robinson being relatively cheap. It's just where these minutes going to go for Miami. It's a team that, you know, it's somewhat deep, But, we're looking at Max Strus getting big minutes today.
Where do you have Lowry projected?
I have him for a little over 40 fantasy points.
DraftKings?
Yes.
Okay. I got him at 39.6. So I don't think that we're too far apart from each other. It was tricky. Like, we have such a small sample of Lowry without Hero and Butler on. You really have to make some inferences about what you think his usage rate can actually do. I bumped him to 23%. I didn't feel too comfortable going much higher. It hasn't appeared that he's really tried to take over anything in those situations. That felt about right to me. Bam is the guy that I'm just a little bit more interested in from Miami, which I'm sure is not all that surprising.
No, I love Bam also. And we've done shows where we've talked about some of the numbers for Bam Adebayo this year, the Jimmy Butler off the court. And once again, Bam Adebayo's numbers, if you look at them this year with Butler and Hero off the court, they don't look so great. But if you look at them with just Butler off the court, it's just crazy usage rate going to Jimmy Butler, and he does everything for them.
Yeah, I'm really curious to get a little bit more data on Lowry without those guys out there to see how big of a boost he's taking. We really don't know right now. It makes sense for him to take like a massive usage bump and do a lot more. That's for sure. Whether or not it happens, I'm not entirely sure. He is getting old.
He is. I mean, we've seen him. What was the one? It was the game against the Lakers, I think it was, where there was a game against the Lakers where Jimmy Butler got hurt midway through the game, and then Kyle Lowry played a really big role in the fourth quarter and took more shots than normal. And that game also ended up going overtime. So his fantasy production was boosted by that overall. But I do remember watching that game, and it's something that resonates with me just when I look back at that game and think like, oh, here's what happened with Jimmy Butler, got rolled out in the middle of the game. And that was also with Tyler Hero in.
Any guards that you're looking at that aren't pulling all that much ownership that you're sort of taking a stand on?
Yeah, let's see. All right. So we also have, do we have a new run of ownership? I think there was one there is one that was just as we were starting the show. Just comparing some of the names here. What's low own? Give me a number.
Sub 10.
Sub 10. Well, this is, DeMar DeRozan only is forward eligibility on DK. Anybody else sub 10 that I'm really getting to? Oh, Spencer Dinwiddie a little bit. Spencer Dinwiddie at 6,200. He's only projected for 7% ownership. I'm about double the field on him. Nobody that I'm getting to like an egregious amount of, but if I'm looking at single digit ownership, it's Dinwiddie would be the guy that I like the most.
I like it. I am over the field on Dinwiddie right now as a basically unowned person on FanDuel. That's just another reason why I think it's kind of easy to get away from the newly minted Kyle Lowry ownership. Again, not that Kyle Lowry is a good or a bad play. He's a good play. I just have a little bit less than the field. So I want to make sure that I'm making that distinction. I'm actually uploading my my dummy lineups. Well, maybe not dummy lineups, but like my first legitimate crunch already. We still got 45 minutes to go. So far, so good. Although
yeah, it's all about the change.
Yeah, it is. Well, the interesting piece here is that we've got Orlando, Philly up at 7:00. We're not waiting on anything there. We've got Denver and Miami at 7:30. We're not really waiting for anything there. Like, I think Jokic is playing. I'm moving forward with that assumption. Bones Highland to me doesn't really matter. What we're really waiting on is 8:00 and after. I don't know. Like, there's a realistic scenario that we start seeing that stuff at 7:01 and not 6:57. So it wouldn't shock me if the next half hour of the show is pretty light from a news perspective. It might get shot out of a cannon though for the final 15 minutes. That part's not exciting.
Yeah, there's going to be people watching NFL Live before lock and asking basketball questions in chat for sure.
Without question. I hate when the schedule is like this, where it's minimal out of the gate, this massive sea of 8:00 and 8:30 games, which makes it really tricky. You got to like pay attention well into your dinner. And then nothing's worse than the 90-minute gap between the 9:00 game and the 10:30 game, where it's the Clippers. I don't trust them to begin with. That can just look pretty squirrely by the end of it. And we didn't get to the centers yet. We will get there eventually. I'm getting to a bunch of Joval on FanDuel, and that just makes me nervous in general when it's the 10:30 start. You never know what's going to happen. Yeah.
Although with that said, it's funny because I think it is a good course of action, especially on slates like this, to get exposure to the late game. And I think the reasoning a lot of people think is just like, I like having a late night hammer, which I mean, I don't care. If somebody scores 30 fantasy points in the first game, it means the same as less. But what I do like to have people exposure to from late game is just have a flexibility to make swaps when players inevitably get ruled out. But it definitely does suck that that game starts at 10:30 and that there's a massive gap between that and the games before it.
Yeah. Like, I don't ever care about late swaps and stuff like that, as long as there's more than one game. And in this particular instance, you're dead on the vine. Like, swaps are going to be pretty difficult if something really weird happens for that 10:30 game. I want to hit on a couple super chats that came in. Aiden had the question, how do you guys feel about Marcus Morris Sr. at 4,600 versus the trash Pels? What did we just get news of?
Zach LaVine game time decision. So
yeah, so no change whatsoever. Yeah. I mean, I like Marcus Morris a lot. Well, maybe not a lot, but like, I think he looks pretty good for 4,600 against the Pels, particularly given the amount of minutes that he just played. But he is the perfect guy to certainly not end up playing tonight with that news coming in at 10:25.
So I have him projected fairly well. I have him projected for a little over 26 fantasy points, which, given his low ownership and price, like, I think that he's fine to get some exposure to. There are certainly guys I like more than him, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the way that he fell into bigger minutes in that last game out, we saw him play 34. That's not what I'm projecting him for. I've got him at 30, but knowing that he can play 34, that's real on the late night.
Yeah, there's definite upside there.
A couple more super chats coming in. Another one from Aiden, actually. Vooch versus Charlotte seems good. With or without LaVine, Senators have smashed Charlotte. Yeah, I agree. I mean, Vooch doesn't exactly play like a traditional center. That's a little bit different, but I'm not super worried about that. It's not like PJ Washington is going to be dissuading him all that much. I agree. He does look good. He's just been like the fourth banana for Chicago, or probably third banana if we want to be real technical. That's not ideal.
One more thing to add about Vucevic, he's going to shoot better going forward. His numbers this year and his fantasy production doesn't look great at first glance, but I'll pull up his efficiency numbers. They are crazy low compared to his career averages. And the other thing to consider too, in theory, he should be getting much easier shots this year than he's ever had at any other point in his career. He's never played with this much talent before. He's only played on shit teams in the past. And now he's got good players around him that should really help him. Yet you look at his numbers this year, he's shooting 40% from the field. His career average is 49.4%. And he's been right around 50% or high 40% the last few years. He's shooting 26% from three. He's a 35.3% shooter from the field from three for his career. 61.5% from the free throw line. All his numbers look off and are wonky, but it's all stuff that should correct going forward.
I don't know if this was news that we had earlier, but Zach LaVine didn't go through shoot around. Does that change anything for you? It means a little bit less to me that it's Zach LaVine.
I mean, the reason he's listed as questionable is because he didn't go through shoot around and he just wasn't feeling well this morning. But to me, that doesn't really have much impact on how he's feeling now. So it's one of those things where, how is he feeling after taking a nap, pretty much.
Right. I don't read into that too much on guys like Zach LaVine for illnesses. Like, there's just no reason for him to go through shoot around at this point as a very clear NBA regular. If you don't feel good, man, just like get some rest, get some fluids, and we'll talk to you in a couple hours. So that doesn't really change anything for me. I just don't remember seeing that. Like, he really wasn't out there earlier today, but I also wasn't looking that hard for it. One more super chat we had. If Zach is out and the T-Wolves forwards are out, is anybody?
We've got Jaden McDaniels and Jared Vanderbilt are both questionable.
Right. Okay. That's who we're looking at. Do you like Javonte Green or Taurean Prince more as a last man in? Both 3,800 on FanDuel. I mean, I have no idea. Not so Javonte Green, I assume.
Here, the issue is that there's so many permutations of that where it's like, because you need to get Vanderbilt and McDaniels out. I assume I would like Taurean Prince a lot in that scenario, because then you just start to look at the front court. It's who's playing forward minutes for Minnesota if there is no McDaniels or Vanderbilt. And the forwards that are available on the roster, it's not that many. You got Taurean Prince. I guess Malik Beasley could play some forward minutes, but they haven't really done that a whole much. Then you got Nathan Knight, Jake Layman. They're pretty thin in the front court. So I would assume I'd like Taurean Prince in that situation.
That makes the most sense to me. That's for sure. Just trying to look at Minnesota's roster right now. I know you just read off some people. Steve Buzzard, the Colts in chat, said Naz Reid super interesting in that spot. Yeah, they could very easily play Naz Reid alongside Cat for a bit. No real issues there.
Yeah, Naz Reid 3,100 does have power forward eligibility on DK. Let's see, what's his positionality on FanDuel? Naz Reid is just a center on FanDuel, and he's 4,400. So,
unplayable.
FanDuel, he'd be tough to get to. DK, though, I totally agree. DK with forward eligibility and being 3,100, he would certainly make it into my player pool.
Absolutely. FanDuel's got these Minnesota guys priced crazily. Like Jared Vanderbilt's 6,200.
McDaniels just ruled out Jared Vanderbilt game time decision.
All righty. Yeah. Vanderbilt is 6,200 on FanDuel today. So that's going to be a pretty tough sell one way or the other. Well, let's talk about it. We take Jaden McDaniels out. At least for right now, I assume we're bumping up Jared Vanderbilt's minutes to a pretty significant number. I mean, he played the double OT game, what do we go, like 27, 28, something like that. Just in general, Taurean Prince played 30 plus the overtime period. So who do we think gets the biggest bump here? It's a lot of minutes to go around right now.
Yeah, and by the way, so Vanderbilt played 37 in that last game, and he fouled out playing 37 minutes, 36 and a half technically.
DJ Augustine in the health and safety protocols doesn't really matter to me right now, but
no, that doesn't matter.
Matters in general.
Yeah. I think, let's see, what is Taurean Prince is priced at, so 32. So I'm going to get to Taurean Prince on DK, I assume. Yeah, I mean, it's 3,200, and we're just the Wolves are really thin in the front court, and there's potential here to have Jared Vanderbilt ruled out, and he's a game time decision. I assume we're not going to know whether he's in or out until after the show ends. But I want to have Taurean Prince in my lineups for nothing else to be a placeholder, and then to maybe divvy up some of the exposure after we get more news with also Miles Turner. If Miles Turner ends up being ruled out, and that's in the same time slot, I'm going to be getting exposure to Batadze. So yeah. I think that's something that also makes sense, is to try to get exposure to these Minnesota guys anyway. Number one, good points per dollar plays, but number two, good placeholder in case better value opens up.
Cody Martin also out now. What do you think the impact is there for Charlotte? That certainly solidifies Terry Rozier, certainly solidifies Kelly Oubre. I think we see Oubre probably somewhere in that 30-minute range now. Do we see somebody else step into the rotation?
It's not a direct impact.
Hey, Jokic in. Perfect. All right. There's something we don't have to update for. Yep. PJ Washington is only $4,900 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he is priced at $5,100. He's also kind of popular on FanDuel, but only 10.5% ownership on DK. I think that particularly on DK at that ownership, he's a pretty good GPP play. We've seen him be a really good fantasy producer in the past, and he was hurt at the beginning of the year, but now he's finally getting healthy. And minutes last game, at least he played 35 minutes the game before, he played 24. So it seems his minutes are trending up, and that only gets solidified now with Cody Martin out. Even if they don't play the exact same position, the Charlotte can just play bigger lineups now. Yeah, absolutely. There's too many different like McDaniels and Martins and stuff playing today. It's really tough to track. I'm a little over it at this point. I am bumping up like Jalen McDaniels right now. I bumped Kelly Oubre to 30 minutes. That feels about right. They've got a lot of minutes to go around, but they don't like, does Ish Smith just play a little bit now against Chicago? I mean, Chicago runs DeMar DeRozan at the 4 for the large majority of the game. I assume that they can handle having an additional guard out there.
You think that we could see the Bulls play some bigger lineups if Zach LaVine is out, though?
As in who?
Finally start to play idiots like Tony Bradley or Alize Johnson a few minutes?
I doubt it. I don't think I don't know if Alize Johnson has to be your break in case of emergency guy in that scenario.
He had that one good game. He was chalked the next late and he played 0 minutes.
It's insane. It's truly insane. All right. So no more Cody Martin. Jalen McDaniels minutes seem whatever. I think I'm going to give some time to Ish Smith here. Maybe we see a little bit more Nick Richards. I don't know, but I don't think the Ish Smith minutes matter, by the way. So let's just put that out there. I do need to hit on a couple things before we keep going. One, well, maybe like a 2 or 3. Schedule for the rest of the day, 7:15, NFL Live Before Lock for Monday Night Football. You don't want to miss it. NBA player rankings are free. The NFL top single game plays tool, free. NHL ownership is free. And we do have a Cyber Monday promo code going on. You can't use it right now because it's going to be so popular. We had to disable it until 8:15. It's not a gimmick. We swear you can still use it. It's a great deal. You'll get 75% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum if you use the promo code CYBER. But this is not going to be activated again until 8:15. So we need a bunch of stuff to lock, and then you can get back into it. You'll have up until midnight tonight to use it. All right, let's talk a little bit about forwards. How are you feeling about the chalk forwards for today?
All right. So chalk forwards for today. And let me refresh, see if we have a more recent run of ownership than what I'm looking at. And not a most recent one, but let's see. Who are some of the guys who are forwards that we did not talk about yet as guards?
Guards, yeah.
So, there's guys we've already talked about a little bit, like Max Strus, Duncan Robinson. They also have forward eligibility. Jayshawn Tate is really popular on DK, and they're just guys I like more than him. I'd rather roster the chalky Heat players than a chalky Jayshawn Tate for me personally. His minutes have just been really hard to trust, and maybe a lot of people are looking at recent box scores and be like, oh, look at all the minutes they just played. Well, the Rockets just played in a ridiculously high-scoring overtime game. So the Jayshawn Tate one, I don't really quite get. Do you feel differently about him?
It's very different for me on FanDuel and DraftKings. So on FanDuel for Tate, he's 5,600. On DraftKings, 4,800. I don't
still 14%
like him at all
owned on FanDuel though.
Yeah, I'm not going to be having him on that particular rate. I think it's a bit more reasonable on DraftKings. I would certainly still be in that like 15 to 20% range based on his current ownership. On FanDuel, I think he's a pretty tough sell.
Yeah, I am. I'm not really getting to him at all. Even on DK, there's just other guys I've projected much better around him.
All right. No new news for right now. So I guess I can start running a crunch. No concept of how that's going to shake out by the time we get to it, but got to at least keep it moving. Some of my highest exposed forwards for right now, probably the easiest way to hit you with this. Clearly, I like Bam on FanDuel. I like Christian Wood on FanDuel. Both guys are chalky and getting ownership. Kelden Johnson is a guy that I have a little bit of interest in. He's pulling some ownership. I am a little bit lighter, but I still like him. PJ Washington, as we mentioned, forward eligibility, a guy that I think it's pretty easy to get to. Karis LeVert, small forward eligibility on FanDuel. He's getting owned a bit. Minutes might be creeping up, which I think is pretty interesting. How are you feeling about LeVert today? I don't know if we talked about him at all.
I really like LeVert a lot, especially on DK where he's only 5,300. He's such a good points per minute fantasy producer. And once again, this is a guy who, if you go back to even earlier in the year, we're paying almost $7,000 for. Then you go back to last year and, the situation's a little different, but he was a 9,000 salary player at the end of last year. So these are always the spots that I like to buy low on players. Actually, Karis LeVert is currently my most known player on DK.
Really?
5,300, yeah.
I mean, I don't mind it. That's a lot of Karis LeVert.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he's egregiously underpriced, and the ownership is not. 20% from at 5,300. I don't think is an issue.
Derek Smith, if you're trying to play Jackson Hayes today, you need to unregister.
Let's see, Jackson
particularly
Hayes.
on FanDuel.
I'm just kind of curious because Jackson Hayes is not somebody I've thought about at all today.
Well, him being not in the rotation is probably a big piece of that. So,
yeah, I have Jackson Hayes playing 0 minutes today,
as one should. Derek Smith, just bounce on out of that bad boy. That's not going to be the contest for you.
No, unless it's low ball. No, that wouldn't even count though, because I think low ball, like you're not allowed to play guys who play 0 minutes in low ball. It's cheating.
Yeah. He is not a part of the rotation. Ryan Stubbs, you are also right. Kemba also not a part of the rotation any longer.
And the Knicks are also not playing tonight.
Yeah, not super relevant. Not also not all that surprising. What else you got for forwards? Who's low owned that you're getting to? Who are your forward flyers for today?
Yeah, so it's hard to call him a flyer, but DeMar DeRozan's only picking up single-digit ownership on DraftKings right now. And if we're going to get Zach LaVine potentially out, I was looking earlier at let me see if I still have it up. All right, so this year, with Zach LaVine off the court, DeMar DeRozan.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Bones Highland in, JaMychal Green out, Maxey, Curry, Green, Harris, Embiid, the starting lineup for the Sixers.
All right.
So that's just Zeke Naji backup center, and that's all we worry about.
Yeah, I mean, we have Jokic back, so obviously that's a big difference for Denver with him being out in recent games. But I didn't think JaMychal Green was going to play a massive amount of minutes anyway.
No, I mean, I had him as basically the backup. I think those minutes probably just go immediately to Zeke Naji, and you call it a day. Yeah,
and that's nobody else I'm playing then from Denver either.
No, not at all. I mean, like if you get a share of Aaron Gordon or Will Barton or something like that, that's not like a ridiculous move to make. It's also not a priority at all. I don't think that news for JaMychal Green matters at all to the slate. Like if you've crunched already and you don't want to do it again, this is not one of those things that you need to do to change it up.
And it's also a thing where I'm saying that it doesn't impact guys like Barton and Gordon. If you have them in your player pool right now, and that's fine. I don't have an issue with it, but nothing really changes for them individually with JaMychal Green out.
Yep. And thank you to Rinpack for that one, for sliding into the DMs. Suggs, Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, Carter Jr., Bamba is the starting lineup for the Magic.
Nothing surprising. Oh, by the way, so the thing I was going to flyer forward. I don't know if he counts the flyer. It's kind of cheating a little bit, but DeMar DeRozan's projected for single-digit ownership. And if Zach LaVine is out, I don't think people are going to. Some people will swap onto him, but I don't think he's going to be as popular as he should be in that situation. And DeMar DeRozan showed 36.3% usage rate with LaVine off the court.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel like I should make I don't want to say like an effort to get to more DeMar, but maybe just give him a little boosty boost just so he shows up a little bit more. And if I need to do the opposite and like swap down a bit, it's really easy to just pull him up and, hot swap him manually to like 4 or 5 other guys. 6:34 already, man. Live Before Lock is the fastest show in the world. We're done here in 25 minutes. I feel like we haven't even started yet.
No, and we haven't even gotten we've gotten some news, but we haven't gotten the most important news yet.
I know. And I'm super nervous that we're not going to do that. What is really important though, 3,165 people in here, 787 likes. I got it in my sights right now. 1,000 is on the table. If you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, now is the time to do so. Yeah, that's fair. Guess I shouldn't say boosty boost. That is a pretty terrible terminology. I'm going to put that one to bed moving forward. At least I hope. Feel free to roast me for that if I ever say it again. I won't have any problems with it. I deserve that, dope heathen.
That's like back in the day when Spags used to always accidentally make the football puns when we were talking about value plays.
Such as
just bad ones. I don't even remember what they were. I just remember that he felt ashamed and depressed every time he made them last year.
Yeah, sometimes I don't really look. We talk a lot. Sometimes you just forget what's coming out of your mouth. Like I would never say that in my day-to-day life.
No, especially when I don't know if you do this, but when we're talking about some of the players, when guys get ruled out, I'm just going on autopilot when I'm talking. Like I'm just talking as I'm kind of looking through like, oh, here's what I feel these guys' projections are like. I'm thinking about the slate and the players individually. I'm not thinking about what I'm actually saying.
No, not at all. It's just the words are there. I'm hoping they're even like they're close to correct. And I just move on from there. More often than not, they're probably not correct. DJ Augustine, COVID protocols, now in quarantine. We already know that. I don't have much interest in that Magic starting lineup. So let's talk centers, I guess. We do have that piece of news on Miles Turner still hanging out there. I like him quite a bit on FanDuel as a low-owned tournament play. I also like getting to Nikola Jokic, although I'm anxious to see what happens to his ownership as we move forward. We've got guys like Jared Allen who also have power forward eligibility on FanDuel that are not getting nearly as owned as I think they should be. Same for like Kristaps Porzingis, another low-owned guy. So I have got a lot of interest in some of these centers that have power forward eligibility on FanDuel. What do you like today?
So my favorite forward, who's also forward slash center, who's didn't quite make it into the 10% number he gave me before, because he's below 10%. But Domantas Sabonis is about 10.5% owned right now on FanDuel and DraftKings. As is, I like him at that number. But then if you take Miles Turner out, Sabonis becomes maybe my favorite play on the entire slate. Also, I would like LeVert a little bit more in that situation, but I already like LeVert a ton. But Sabonis to me is somebody who really stands to gain a lot from Turner because that really solidifies his minutes.
I really want Turner to be ruled in here. That's a swap that I don't want to have to deal with because it unquestionably has like big time trickle down effects. And that's one that really moves stuff around. I don't really want to deal with that. So that usually means that Miles Turner will be ruled out somewhere into it while I have 25% Miles Turner.
Yeah. And I mean, Goga, somebody else I'd be getting a ton of because I would assume that he would start. And if you look at Goga's numbers, he's always been a good fantasy producer when he gets on the court. He doesn't get on the court all that often, but fantasy point per minute this year. Last year, he played 12.7 minutes per game, scored 13.94 DraftKings points in those minutes. And then also go back to his starts last year. He pretty regularly, as long as he was able to stay out of foul trouble, he pushed for like 30 minutes and scored around 30 fantasy points in those starts. So terrific value play if there's no Turner.
Wow. I don't think we talked about this. Thoughts on Duncan Robinson as the chalk play on DraftKings right now?
I
know what my thoughts are.
I mean, I like him as a points per dollar play. I didn't realize that he wasn't this popular in an earlier run of ownership. Let's see. We have one from 5 minutes ago. Where's he at now? Yeah, he's gotten all the way up to 30.7% ownership.
I don't understand it.
I get it because of the guys that are out for the Heat. We've seen him play over 40 minutes in one game this year when they were banged up. It was that. Let's see.
I'm not sure he's the best shooting guard, small forward guy on the Heat today.
No, I'm not sure he is either. But I understand why people are getting to him. I have him. I'm pretty close to the field on him actually. I gave him a lot of minutes. No Miles Turner.
Nope. So let's get moving here. Let's talk about what we think that's going to do.
Also, really quick, because Charles left us a super chat and it was messaging us in Discord about it also. He's said that he's looking at the Philly game for showdown. It looks like Mo Bamba is playing. Should you go with him or Wendell Carter Jr. or both? I have Embiid as captain. Well, let's see. Who do I have projected for more fantasy points between Bamba
I'll go
and
Wendell Carter Jr.
It is for me. Wendell Carter Jr.
What do we want to do here?
Play Batadze and Sabonis.
Yeah, that's probably it. 21 minutes to go. Let's work through all of this right now. So your assumption is that Goga will start today?
That is my assumption. Now, he hasn't played quite as many minutes this year as we've seen in the past, but at least the way they've done this in previous years, when Miles Turner's been out the last couple of years, we've seen Batadze start in these situations. So I think it's going to be him.
I'm not as confident.
I mean, if it's not, then I'll end up swapping to somebody else. But for now, I'm assuming it's Batadze.
It feels like it's Sabonis to me. Because it's not as if Goga Batadze is even the backup center. And that's concerning to me. I don't know if you have it up quickly. Do you know if Goga and Sabonis have played alongside each other all that much this year?
I don't know this year. I'm going to look back the last game that Goga started last year.
I think we got to throw all that in the garbage because it's different coaching.
Yeah, that's true also. I could really quickly look it up.
Yeah, I'm going to get to it as fast as I can because I think that's a really important piece. If they haven't seen the floor at all together, I think that really matters. Guys, we're getting a ton of super chats right now. Get ready to not have those answered anytime soon.
Yeah, we'll answer them in a couple minutes as soon as we get through the Pacers situation. Actually, you know what? Look up whether they played minutes together or not, and I will start to answer some of the super chats while you're looking up that information.
All righty, I'm working on it right now.
All right, so super chats. All right, there we go.
So I got the Goga one already.
Oh, okay.
Goga has played 132 minutes this year, 69 of which have been with Sabonis. So at the very least, they don't have a problem playing those two guys alongside each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's over 50% of his minutes. So
yeah, that makes me feel pretty good. Looking like 18 minutes for Goga, something in that range.
And that's assuming that you're assuming he comes off the bench in that situation.
I mean, I don't think he closes either way. That would just really surprise me, particularly against Minnesota.
So who do you think, and if you're assuming Sabonis starts at center, who do you think enters the starting lineup in place of Miles Turner?
I think we're going to see Brogdon. Let me work through this. Brogdon, Sabonis, obviously. Against this team,
Duarte can start again.
Yeah,
he hasn't been starting.
Yeah, I think Duarte is the guy that moves into that starting lineup. Yeah,
that wouldn't open up a whole lot of value, in my opinion, if it ends up being Duarte, because they have so many wings they could play. They have Duarte, they have TJ McConnell, they could play Justin Holiday, Keelan Martin, Torrey Craig, Jeremy Lamb. It would be, Duarte was great at the start of the year, but then dropped off and hasn't played nearly as much lately. Actually, he's 3,900 on DK. I didn't realize what his price was. What is he on FanDuel?
I think it's a problem to go I'm obviously not confident here. I think it's a problem to go to Goga and Sabonis for too much because of the spacing. I think it's easier to start Sabonis at the 5, go to Duarte, still maintain a sort of 4 out with Sabonis, and then rotate around that. Whether or not that's true, I don't have a damn clue, but that's my assumption for right now.
Yeah. So Duarte, I don't think he's particularly appealing on FanDuel. DK 3,900. That's not a bad guy to get to, though.
No. And if you're bumping up Justin Holiday to something like 30 minutes, I don't think it's all that interesting. Maybe O'Shea Brissett plays a generic rotation at the 4. I'm moving forward with Goga at 22 minutes right now. 26 for Sabonis, and then Sabonis gets another 10 at the 4.
Okay, I was confused for a second there because you were 26 minutes for Sabonis. I was like, well, that seems light to me, but yeah, I understand where you're coming from now that I didn't talk before you finished the sentence.
Actually, I might have to go a little bit lower. I mean, Goga's the flat minimum, and he's going to pop up like crazy if I do. So I'm going to just walk that back 1 minute, go 27-21. I mean, I assume you're going to get a ton of them at the flat 3K, even if you project them at 18 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what a ton qualifies as, but let's see if we get an updated ownership and where he is. If he comes off the bench and nobody plays him, then I'm going to want to get him 15-20% of my lineups.
For sure. Let's try to work our way back to those. FanDuel GPP small forward pick 2, Kelden Johnson, Jeff Green, Franz Wagner, LeVert. That's Kelden Johnson and LeVert for me. And I don't even think it's close.
Yeah, there's so Jeff Green, we've got Jokic back in the picture. Franz Wagner just nowhere near the fantasy producer that LeVert and Kelden Johnson are.
No. Jordan Young, can you guys do a tutorial on how to upload multiple lineups for FanDuel on iPhone and iPad? I'll pay for that. Get a computer would be my recommendation there.
So he DM'd me on Twitter, and I was answering him, but it was right before the show started.
Okay.
The same exact way you upload lineups on desktop, you do on your iPhone or iPad. Just go to the desktop version of the site. So instead of bringing up the app, bring up your browser and just go to FanDuel.com.
Also, just get a laptop.
He's traveling. I know the situation.
Yeah, laptops are generally really difficult to travel with.
Well, that's true also.
Darren Unger for FanDuel Cash, pick 3, Washington, Wood, Bam, Sabonis. The first 3.
No, I would play Wood, Bam, and Sabonis over Washington.
I assume that Washington being 4,900 on FanDuel is going to maintain that value, especially with the power forward eligibility. I think that, look, I don't have a huge issue with it either way, but I don't think that I'm going to get to Sabonis over Washington, Wood, or Bam in that scenario. Not that I don't like Sabonis. Murray, White, Johnson, Bates, Diop, and Pirtle, Gilgeous-Alexander, Dort, Giddey, Baisley, Robinson, Earl. None of that is particularly interesting. Jordan Lockhart with the big super chat. Engelman and Greg, thanks, gents, for the content. You are quite welcome. This is getting a little squirrely. 14 minutes to go. I'm going to need to shout out our presenting sponsor, Yahoo, sometime in the near future. We're working on that. I'm going to at least get this crunch going before I get to it. This is a fun slate. I've missed DFS basketball over the past week. I really hated Thanksgiving.
I know this is usually a question you ask as we start to crunch lineups, but I wanted to bring it up now. Somebody I'm getting exposure to that it makes sense, but I didn't realize I'm getting quite to this much of them. 4,800 for Jared Vanderbilt on DK. I know you mentioned him before is making sense at 4,800, but another guy, if he's going to be questionable heading into that game, I just don't think people are going to look to play Jared Vanderbilt. And he's been a good fantasy producer as of late. We mentioned before the Wolves being shorthanded in the front court. So it looks like Vanderbilt, especially because he's projected for no ownership today, 3%. I like him a whole bunch.
That seems like a pretty good deal on Jared Vanderbilt. I'm with you. You know what else is a really good deal? 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, thanks to our presenting sponsor, Yahoo. All you have to do is be new to Yahoo, sign up for an account via the link in the description of this video, make a deposit, and then play. That's all you got to do. Yahoo will send us your username after you play in your first paid contest. We will then reach out to you with a coupon code via email. If you need immediate access, just email support@awesemo.com. We can help get you set up. You can also claim a free $10 of site credit by clicking that link in the description. Can be used to enter any contest on Yahoo. We've got DFS tools and projections specifically designed for Yahoo to help give you your best shot at winning. And honestly, you want to be there every single Sunday at the very least for the NFL Baller, because they are guaranteeing, generally speaking, a ton of overlay, and it's the best contest in the industry. Ruben Mitchell with the super chat. Gideon Dort versus DeMar and Caleb Martin in a FanDuel single entry. That's Gideon Dort for me.
Yeah, that is definitely Gideon Dort. So DeMar DeRozan, we're talking about before, he becomes a really good play if Levine is out, but number one, we don't know that as of now. And then number two, Caleb Martin isn't somebody I'm getting much exposure to.
Yes, I agree. I like Gideon Dort no matter what. And I don't think that Caleb Martin offsets DeMar, even if DeMar gets that bump. I still think I prefer Gideon Dort just in a vacuum. The rest of the lineup matters more than anything there, though. Whew. Crunchy, crunchy, crunch. This is not moving as quickly as I would like it to. All right. What are you seeing now that you've been doing this? Have we gotten an ownership update yet?
That is something else. So I have a set of lineups run, but I don't know what I'm going to change based on some of the ownership. Last ownership update was of 9 minutes ago, which in the grand scheme of things is fairly recent, but 9 minutes ago is a lifetime in NBA DFS.
Darren Unger, FanDuel question, LaMelo and PJ Washington or White and Sabonis? Is that Kobe White? There's not another White, right? Oh, Derek White. I was like, don't play Kobe White in comparison here. That's LaMelo and Washington for me.
What do you think of Kobe White if Levine is out, though? It's LaMelo and Washington for me also.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe White, if Zach LaVine is out, I don't know. Does it change anything?
It's more minutes. He's going to shoot when he's on the court.
Who starts?
I think Kobe White would start.
Okay. Closing lineup then is.
It depends if Kobe White's making. It depends if Kobe White's making his shots or not, because we've seen
Lonzo, Vooch, DeRozan for sure.
Yeah,
probably Caruso, Kobe White. Can they run that small?
So it's going to be four of them are easy to figure out: Vucevic, DeRozan, Ball, Caruso. Then it's just whoever's playing well amongst Kobe White, Javonte Green. Maybe Derek Jones plays really well and they need to play bigger or something like that, and they go with him. But it's most likely going to be Kobe White or Javonte Green in that final spot.
I think we're on the same page there. Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes him way more appealing than he is in this particular moment.
Yes. Not worth rostering now.
10 minutes to go until lock. My anxiety level is starting to rise. I don't know about you.
No, not really. I'm not. Here's the other thing also. So I've got this set of lineups that I'm going to upload right now. None of it matters. It's not going to be. It's not going to be things. Oh, ownership in. Okay.
You've got a set of lineups in. Sorry, I was talking over you there.
Oh, I was saying I have a set of lineups in this, but I know I'm going to end up changing it, especially when that Pacers starting lineup comes out.
Yeah. I hope I'm right there. It's just way more fun to be right.
All right. Let's see what we got.
And it's also significantly easier for me to manage it when I'm right to begin with. I'm going to end up with a lot of Joval tonight. That's going to be fun. I like the spot. He could get 20 rebounds tonight if the Clippers just want to be the normal Clippers.
But Tajay's project for 1% ownership on DK at 3,000.
I mean, I clearly like that.
Less than 1% on FanDuel.
On FanDuel, it's different because of the amount of because it's just one center. There's no wiggle room there. He's got to start to matter. Whereas on DraftKings, I don't think he has to start to matter. You just want him to.
Duarte 12.6% owned on DK at 3,900. That's somebody else to be overweight to the field on as well.
Damn. Rod Boone with the quote. James Borrego said the Hornets will probably go with length, filling Cody Martin's spot off the bench. Jalen McDaniels could get extra time tonight. He also mentioned James Bouknight as a possibility, but also said they likely won't go that route. Shit, man.
Oh, all right.
That's brutal.
The coach speak is just that's almost one of those quotes where it's like, I would play James Bouknight, but I just can't. I want to, but I can't. I love when coaches do that.
Can't play him. Sucks.
Yeah.
Weatherman 7 DK question: Goga and Derek White or Eric Gordon and Gabe Vincent?
Jesus.
I mean, it's Goga and Derek White for me, but
yeah, it is Goga and Derek White for me. Gabe Vincent's too popular, in my opinion. There's a lot of plays that I like. I'd rather play, and I'm not even playing that much of him. I like him more than the field, but I would rather play PJ Tucker than Gabe Vincent if you're looking for a cheap option in like utility play for DK.
Yeah, I mean, I think Derek White is just very clearly the best option in that group, and I don't have a ton of confidence in the other three guys.
Yeah, no, same page.
I just refreshed my crunch. We've got 7 minutes to go. I'm terrified to see who I have right now because I don't have a clue. Yeah, that's a lot of Taurean Prince. Yikes. Gonna have to walk that back a little bit. I don't think I need 59%. Seems like a lot. I don't know about you, but
yeah, that's a little aggressive.
Yeah, we have at 2.5% ownership. I mean, that could be significantly more interesting in a bit.
I don't even have to tinker with stuff now. I'm just gonna, because I'm not rostering guys really from that first game anyway. I might as well upload it now, and then I'll change with whatever news happens later.
All right. Yeah, I'll worry about that Minnesota ownership a little bit later, but I've walked down that Taurean Prince quite a bit as necessary. Zach, I can't project Zach LaVine for that much because I've got a ton right now.
Zach LaVine's a great play, particularly on FanDuel if he plays.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm gonna have a bunch of him and cross my fingers, but we'll see where that actually ends up. Other guys that I'm getting to a lot, Kelly Oubre. We don't have projected for particularly too much ownership. He's a guy that I'm significantly more interested in than I was before. Just think that his minute ceiling has now gone up pretty dramatically. Slowly working my way through all of these guys. It's tricky. I'm pretty light on Kyle Lowry right now, which is not something that I totally expected. I'm light on Paul George. I'm light on Tobias Harris. I think Brandon Ingram looks pretty good. I'm getting to a bunch of Jared Vanderbilt now at 6,200. That feels Jalen Brunson will play today. I got to get off of that Vanderbilt right now. I think that's a bad play on FanDuel one way or the other.
What is his ownership at now? So Vanderbilt
1.5, but he's 6,200. I mean, I'd need him to play 40 minutes to be good.
Vanderbilt. I mean, he's 5% on DK. I definitely like him at that number.
Yeah, that 5% on DK is a very different story. That was not he needs so much at that price tag. 656, guys. If you don't have your lineups in yet, you're me.
Yeah.
How you feeling, man? You in? You good?
Trying to upload my final. DK's running a little slow for me right now, so that's a little bit of a pressure point. But we've got the page loading, about to have these uploaded and not uploaded. What happened?
That is the worst feeling ever. So you focus on that. I still have a little bit of our boy Dinwiddie, which still makes me feel pretty good. Christian Wood, my highest exposed player right now.
I have 15% Dinwiddie in my current build, which is all going to change after we get starting. There we go. Now we're uploaded. All right, good. So yeah, the numbers I have right now, I was really sweating the individual ownership. And then it's like, you know what? I'm not really playing guys from the Orlando Philly game. The next game starts at 7:30, the Miami-Denver game. Why am I sweating swapping things now when I know I'm going to have to change it all somewhere in that, 7:30, 8 o'clock range anyway? So look, I'll talk about some of the centers I'm getting to because we haven't really touched on the center position at all.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, while you're uploading that. So Bam Adebayo, we've talked about him in passing, but not really too much in depth. He's just been a monster this year with Jimmy Butler off the court. He's going to be popular, but once again, that's not really an issue for me, given the kind of numbers we've seen from him without Jimmy Butler on the court this year. So 25% projected ownership for Jimmy Butler on DK. I'm overweight to that number. FanDuel's a little bit different because he's all the way up at 41% projected ownership. The 25% I'm overweight to on DK. I only play lineups on DK, though, not FanDuel. Do you think in your build that you're uploading and making right now, you'll be over or under that 41% number on BAM?
I'm under. I have 31.
It's a big number.
Yeah, it is.
Cash game's no brainer.
I clearly $7,700 BAM with no Tyler Hero and no Jimmy Butler is a great play. I think 40 is like my upper bound for that today. There's just a lot of guys in that high 7s, low 8 range on FanDuel. It's just inundated with really, really good plays that are very easy to get to from a non-ownership perspective.
I have a GPP play that I like quite a bit on DK, and actually I would like it on FanDuel too if I was playing there. Jusuf Nurkic, who we've seen the minutes spike a little bit of an upside as of late. A couple of games ago, he played 34 minutes. He's still a really good points per minute fantasy producer. It's just a different coaching situation, and we've not seen Billups as willing generally to play Nurkic big minutes. But given that we did see that game a couple of nights ago where he played 34 minutes, I feel a little bit better about at least the potential for upside in minutes and really low ownership. I like him as a flyer for tournaments because Nurkic does have massive upside.
I like him. I don't have him. It's different for me on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. But I see the appeal. I see the upside there if he has to play a little bit more in this particular matchup. By the way, you mentioned not having a lot of Philly and Orlando. They are my two lowest exposure teams for today. Yeah,
I had at one point I was getting to some of Embiid just because I thought for the matchup and, he's still somewhat low priced relative to expectations. But there's just other guys who I'm getting to ahead of Embiid. And I'd rather have the flexibility to make swaps in my lineups.
All righty. Well, anything else we want to add? It's 6:59, 20 seconds to go. If you don't have your lineups in now, you should probably hustle and do that. I can hit you with my most exposed guys for the day so far. Christian Wood, PJ Washington, Josh Giddey, Bam. I have a lot of Taurean Prince right now. That could very easily change depending on where that news actually breaks. Malcolm Brogdon. I do have a decent chunk of Zach LaVine that should make it pretty easy to swap off of it. Kevin Porter Jr., Karis LeVert, Brandon Ingram, a flyer that I've got right now. Kelly Oubre, a flyer that I've got right now. If we've got Jokic at 2.5% ownership on FanDuel, I've got 17. That works for me.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm probably going to do in a second after we get off is try to bump up Jokic just because I'm getting to so much of the Miami players. It just makes sense to have him in there for added correlation.
Well, that'll do it, folks. 7 p.m. on the dot. Greg, I feel like we've talked for 5 minutes. Anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here and scramble some more?
Moses Brown is starting today for the Dallas Mavericks.
Of course he is.
Oh, well, do with that what you will. I think I'll probably get to a few lineups with him.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to matter at all for me from a FanDuel perspective, but DraftKings, I assume it matters. Enjoy that, everybody. Good luck tonight. Make sure you're paying attention to the news. Follow at Awesemo NBA because you don't want to miss any of it. Good luck. NFL Live Before Lock coming up in 15 minutes. Enjoy. Thanks, Yahoo.